Ohio Divided, joined by Storm and Norman. Storm, sounds like we got our technical difficulties worked out from yesterday. Heard Jesse ran over to your house and tore down your Wi-Fi pole, so we had some technical difficulties yesterday where Norm was having to connect via data on his phone and had to sit in a basement, so not a great combination, so we ended up having to close out that show a little bit early yesterday, but Norm's back. He's got his internet fixed and he's ready to roll. How's life with the internet again, Norm?
We're back. We should be good today. You know, I'm not trying to make any promises or anything, but the Wi-Fi pole is intact.
Yeah, you got to watch Jesse. He got me a few times back in the day. Little fucker, you gotta put him in his place, which I know you took care of it, Norm.
You know it.
So yeah, before we get into it, I had a couple posts last week on X just in regards to the show and kind of the structure that we are wanting to do with everything. So as we get further and closer into the football season, Metal and I kind of sat down and talked that we want to find a way to get not only more content out there, but more detailed kind of into certain topics type content. So obviously, when Metal and we have our show, we talk about Ohio State, Michigan, kind of college football, NFL, kind of football all across the board. But whenever we get in and talk to like the Reds, Red Sox, things like that, I can't really offer him much from the Red Sox side of things, and then he can't offer me a whole lot from the Red side of things. So what we've decided to do is keep our main show at one point during the week, but at some point along the way, you may see a second or a third show between either of us. And really what that is a little bit of us kind of diving into more of the topics or more of the sports teams that we follow and that the other one of us doesn't necessarily follow as much. So, for example, if you see in the title of this show, you'll see Ohio is the first word and then kind of the topic and whatnot that we're going to get into. So that's kind of what we're going to do moving forward. So Norm has agreed to do this one. I'm sure you'll hear Norm in the future as well. You may hear some other people or some other accounts on X, some other people that you see out there on the Twitter app that will come and do some shows here and there and whatnot. But I'll try to keep everybody kind of updated with which shows, who's doing what throughout the week. But we will still have our main show that we've always had and probably have an additional one or two other shows really deep diving into Ohio State, Michigan, Bengals, Browns, Reds, Guardians, kind of all those other teams that are out there to go a little bit further in depth and have more content getting out to everybody. So just as an update on that, wanted to kind of talk to that as we get going in case anybody had any questions and anything that I was posting out there. Other than that, I do want to thank our sponsor for this episode. So our sponsor, this episode is brought to you by Draft Top, the ultimate tool for beer lovers. If you're tired of drinking out of cans and want to actually taste your drink the way it is meant to be enjoyed, Draft Top is your answer. It's a bar tool that removes the top of your can, turning it into a smooth, open cup. That means better aroma, better flavor, and no more drinking through that tiny opening. Perfect for tailgates, watch parties, or just crapping open one out after a long day of watching the Reds piss you off as they try to make a way towards a playoff push. Either way, get Draft Top. Just got my code today. Go to drafttop.com and use promo code DIVIDED at checkout and you get 10% off your order. Give it a look. You'll be seeing more content come from me and Metal as well from Draft Top. Really excited to bring them on board and have them sponsor this show and have them kind of sponsor everything else on our platform. So excited to do everything with them. Aside from that, Norm, let's get into it. I think the main thing that we wanted to start off with today was just random noteworthy headlines that are kind of across either the world, the sports world, whatever it may be. So I've got a couple notes here. I don't know if you have any on your side as well. The biggest one I had was there's going to be no change to the March Madness format. I'm not sure if you saw that at all, and I think that's exactly what they needed to do. I think 68 teams is plenty. I think they have a really good tournament, probably the most exciting tournament in all of sports. You have something that's up there, maybe not necessarily the viewers of like what a Super Bowl has, but you have something that's up there in probably the top 2, top 3 sporting events of anything across all of sports. So when I heard conversations early on, I kind of thought it was a little stupid when they were considering expanding this thing. Like, for God's sake, there's fucking 68 teams in this thing already. It is literally awesome. Like, if you don't like March Madness, there's clearly something wrong with your brain. And I think it's just one of those things. Like, don't fix something that's not broke, and I'm glad they ultimately decided to not touch it. I think it needs to just remain how it is because it is fucking awesome, and it's one of the best times of the year.
Yeah, man. I mean, I completely agree. I mean, I think 68 is the perfect number. I think the only thing I would say for the tournament is I like to play in games where it's like the bubble teams. I'm kind of a proponent of automatic qualifiers should be automatically like in the tournament. I'm not as big of a fan of like the 16 versus the 16s. Would prefer all those teams to get, like a first round matchup with the 1 or 2 seed, and then having, what would end up being the last 8 teams in the bubble playing for that spot. I think that's the thing is I think that's kind of what they're going for, but they're trying to do it by expanding teams and, having more games and doing all that for, TV rights and all that. But I think it's already set up properly. I just think that adjustment's the thing they should do, where I think the buy-in on the play-in games would be even higher for that because, you have games like Texas Xavier last year, where, you have, big conference teams in there, and that's going to draw more viewership than, those 16 seed games, obviously. So I think that's the fix. Like, those 16 seed games are probably going to get watched anyway because they're going to be playing a 1 seed. So, I think it's a better fix adjusting it that way versus expanding the tournament.
Yeah, for sure. I think and too, like those 16 seeds, they get in because they earn their right to get in. I agree where I'd rather see 2 11s battle it out at a play-in and at UD versus watching 2 16s battle it out. It's like a once in a lifetime opportunity for a lot of those schools, and they definitely fucking earn it. Like, they deserve to get in there, go play, go get their ass kicked by a 1 seed. But nonetheless, they did their part. They did what it took to get into the tournament, and I think they should be rewarded for that. I think it's got to be like your bubble teams that haven't performed so well the way it is. And I mean, to even get to like a play-in game, like technically you're kind of still on the outside looking in at that point. So don't punish the teams that did what they needed to do to get there. Punish the teams that didn't take care of their business throughout the season and allow them to kind of play those play-in games. But nonetheless, I am glad that they are keeping this format. I didn't think that they needed to do anything with it. March Madness is literally one of my favorite things, maybe my favorite time of the year, up there with like college football, NFL starting. I mean, it's either like one of those 2 times. I think about the course of the year just watching sports. Like, those are my 2 favorite times of the year, is right when football's starting and then March Madness. Obviously, you always have the memories of like watching March Madness games at school growing up. Even now, as you get in kind of like more of a professional life with your work and your career and whatnot, it always seems like people are tuning in at their desk, and it's really something that brings a lot of people together. I think that just the vibe around like filling out a bracket, the vibe around like having an upset, I think really plays into why people love March Madness, and another reason for them just to keep it on how it's always been.
Yeah, man. I think like, I mean, me personally, me, I'm a big NBA guy, but I think March Madness is where the argument is for college over professional, because the games are just so wild. It's never over. The upsets, just the drama in itself, with a winner takes all, loser goes home type situation. It's hard to beat. And, those first couple days, the Thursday afternoons, you're watching, Maryland, West Virginia, or whoever, you're buying in. Everybody has a side, whether it's your bracket or whether, the underdogs, fighting, and you're starting to root for them. I think, as we were talking about, I think having having more of those like competitive battles, it is good in theory, but I think 68 is the right number for having the regular season still matter, but also having a deep competitive field.
Yeah. So I did want to bring up a chat, Norm. I don't know if you can see the chats to this or not, but Jeff Koenig said he likes having 16 seeds play in a play-in game because you give 16 seeds a chance to play 2 games versus only playing 1, which are probably more than likely going to do, which I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, there are definitely a lot of 16 seeds that if they're only playing their 1 seed game, they're not moving on. So I guess that is another way to look at it. If you're going to have 2 16s kind of compete it out, you are giving somebody an opportunity to play twice on a national stage, kind of get their names out there a little bit more. So I think it is a good point, but kind of just I think the whole thing we're getting at here is they made the right decision. You don't need to change anything when it comes to March Madness. Leave it how it is. Everybody loves it. If you don't love it, you have something wrong with you. Aside from that, did you have any other headlines, Norm? I think you had mentioned earlier you wanted to note just the Guardians.
Yeah, man. So in the past, we were going to talk about, the Luis Ortiz situation. And we are like, yeah, man, it kind of, fizzled over. Obviously it sucks for Guardians fans. But I feel like with Clase being added to it, like, I think it just kind of shines a light on how kind of insane the situation is. Like, if you're looking at just the deadline, you see a guy like Mason Miller be traded. And obviously he wasn't the only one a part of that trade with the Padres, but he's kind of the major guy. And they're able to pull the number 3 prospect in baseball. And then when you're doing like some side-by-sides with Clase and Mason Miller, like Clase has a better career ERA, pretty much every single stat. He's beating Mason Miller at. And it feels like Clase has been around forever, right? And Clase is a year older than Mason Miller. So I think it's a pretty insane kind of comparison to put. Like, the Guardians have basically lost one of their top starters and an elite closer that they likely would have traded this deadline just with how their bullpen's situated.
They got so fucked with that gambling situation. They got so fucked with that gambling situation.
Yeah, I honestly couldn't imagine. It's it's pretty insane. Like, I don't even know how to like wrap my head around it. Obviously we're not as personally affected being Reds, not Guardians fans. But it's pretty insane. Because Luis Ortiz was pretty much the main guy they got when they traded Jimenez this offseason. So, like, they pretty much, if you just want to call it losing Jimenez and losing Clase, those are 2 pretty big pieces from the Guardians, seeing as if you want to follow the trade line, Jimenez was the main piece they acquired with Lindor. So 2 pretty big losses for them. But as I'm looking right now, I think they ended up getting it done again tonight to help us out.
Oh yeah, Mets go down.
They got her done, so that's huge. But yeah, so I thank them for still pulling out these dubs. But as I said, could not imagine the situation. I mean, I'm a Browns fan, so I can feel with Cleveland a little bit. This is pretty much Watson in baseball style. Just absolutely cataclysmic event that is going to be very difficult to come back from. I think in baseball there will be a larger ability to move around just with their ability to develop pitching and whatnot. But again, still pretty wild. And it went from us being like, yeah, it's, it's a story, but it's nothing too huge to, like, I think Clase, having it be 2, having it be Clase, I think just kind of takes it over the edge of like, wow, this is very fucked.
Oh, I think it put a huge microscope over it now.
Yeah, I'm seeing dudes on Twitter tracking every first pitch for Guardians pitchers.
See, if
So
you get
this
too
shit's
far
been
into
blowing
that
up.
shit, like you're just gonna eventually you're always gonna fucking I don't know. It's just if you start digging into it that far, like you're gonna find trends with so many guys in Major League Baseball who are 100% not participating in making money off of first pitch strikes or whatever the fuck the bet is that they're trying to do. I I don't know. I just think once you get like I don't think people realize like obviously for those guys pitching is not hard, but like it still is not as easy as what fucking people act like it is.
Yeah, I mean, one ball is pretty huge. Like it's like think of it like you talk about hitters counts all the time. Like
Oh
1-0
yeah.
isn't
No
isn't
pitcher
quite
wants
the
to
hitter's
start out
count, but
1-0. No pitcher wants to
Yeah,
start out 1-0. That's a death sentence
it's not a
against
good
guys
start,
like
so.
against guys like Shohei Ohtani, Aaron Judge, Freddie Freeman. Like if you get down in the count, you're basically fucked at that point.
Yep.
So Jeff Canning again would coming in with another comment. He said now DeWine is trying to take prop bets out of Ohio. I think that's been done for like a while now, right? Like
That's college. I have heard they're trying to expand
for
it
professional too.
Yeah, I think they'll have a harder time doing it just because you have all the like not even just your main like your FanDuels and your DraftKings.
Well,
like
there's
you
probably
have,
like contracts in place with a lot of the leagues, professional leagues, I'm sure, with sports books.
yeah. So I just think it'll be harder for them to do. I feel like there would be a lot more like I don't know. There'd have to be a lot more like actual government movement that I would hope they can't have happen. But yeah, no, I mean I don't think it'll happen, but I will say I wouldn't be shocked by it either.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know why our politicians think they need to get involved with sports. I think we have bigger issues in the world. But this is not a politics show, and I'm not getting into it. I just think there's probably other areas they could be putting their focus, but that's just me. All right, do you have any other headlines, Norm? I think another funny one that I had, just briefly, I think it is fucking hilarious the dildos being thrown on the WNBA courts. That's like one of my favorite things on the internet right now. I find that shit so goddamn funny. But keep it up, fans. Like, you kind of make me want to go find Spencer's or something and find a giant dildo and just try to fucking put one on Caitlin Clark's forehead or something. I mean, there's enough space there to park a fucking plane.
Oh god. It's funny because I feel like it almost is like it's a weird way to be like the WNBA is starting to become relevant when fans are doing crazy shit. Like it's like, okay, you know, before it was no one showing up to the game, it's $5 to go. Now people are games that they're throwing dildos on the ground, you know, so they're getting some traction. It's not all going to be good, but that's kind of sports. Like you got streakers, you got, you know, people throwing cans on the field, or the Browns, the old bottle gate, you know, so there's fans are crazy.
I'm all for that type of shit.
It is.
I'm all for that type of shit. Like, don't hurt the players, obviously. I think it's fucking hilarious. I mean, I was talking earlier in the year, I cannot stand the Reds ownership. I fucking hate the Castellinis. They can go fuck off for all I'm concerned. But I was talking about writing fuck Bob on my ass cheeks and just going down behind home plate at a Reds game and for the first pitch of the game just mooning the fuck out of it. Like, that would be a good way to, like, get a message across. But, yeah, either way, like, I'm all for that type of shit. Like, be a passionate fan. Like, I am all for that shit. Like, I devote a lot of time, a lot of passion, a lot of emotion into my favorite teams, and I want to see you fucking win, and when you're not fucking winning, I want our fans to let them know. So, I'm all for that shit.
Yep. I mean, I'm all for the fanatic. That's can't spell fanatic without fan. So that's
Facts.
I mean, we're doing this being fanatics, you know. So it's like, I mean, again, it's like you said, you don't want anybody to get hurt or anything, obviously, but it is a hilarious situation.
Very, very funny. So first topic of the night, we want to get into the Cincinnati Reds. So Reds made 3 trade moves at the deadline. So for each of the 3 guys that we have, we are going to rank them on a scale of 1 to 10. So first, for Ke'Bryan Hayes, Reds get him from the Pittsburgh Pirates, third baseman with a batting average of .236. He's got 3 home runs on the year, 39 RBIs with a .575 OPS. I've got the StatCast numbers pulled up here. The biggest part I want people to pay attention to is the top right corner. You have the hitting value, the base running value, and the fielding value. So basically what they do is they rank guys based on 0 or 1 to 100 based on what their production is in those 3 areas of the game. So Ke'Bryan Hayes has a 1 out of 100 batting value. Not good. Base running, he's got 70 out of 100, which you would expect an infielder's probably pretty fast, so you would expect him to be decent in that area. And then fielding, really, like, you're getting a gold glover with this guy. You got a 97 out of 100 fielding value. But I think the best part of this trade is you get 5 years of team control. The part that I have an issue with it is you're kind of in a win-now type mode. I'm not saying, like, this year is do or die, and I'm not saying that I don't want Ke'Bryan Hayes. I am more than happy to get Ke'Bryan Hayes. I think they got a lot of value out of this trade. I really like that you probably brought in a surefire gold glover for the next 5 years that he's on your team. But like the Reds have had like a decade and a half, almost 2 decades of like just horrible offense. Like just downright horrible offense. Even the guys that they have brought up through their system, you see them hit, I mean, look at it every single night. You see guys like Rhys Hines, CES. I mean, the Will Benson's done it. Guys down in AAA that are absolutely mashing AAA pitching. They get up to the major leagues, and they literally cannot do anything. So there's something there within the development side of things. I obviously have been very vocal about Nick Krall. I'm not a fan of him. But I also am not ignorant enough to say that he doesn't have his hands strapped by the Castellinis just being probably some of the worst owners of any franchise, of any organization in all of sports. But, yeah, I gave this a 4 out of 10 on the scale just because, I mean, the fielding is awesome. I think the value that they get at 5-year team control is awesome. But their issue has been their issue for 10, 15, 20 years now. They can't fucking hit. And that's why I ranked it a 4 out of 10. That doesn't mean I don't like the trade. That just means that I think that they didn't hit on certain needs. But I also understand you're not going to hit on every need with every single guy. So I'll take Ke'Bryan Hayes. I don't understand the fact that Santiago Espinal got the start over him tonight. Maybe it was rest. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But on a side note, to a guy we're going to get to later, Miguel Andujar had his second hit as a Red tonight. Just singled to put runners on first and second with 1 out in the top of the 7th for the Reds. So, Norm, I'll turn it over to you. Your thoughts on Ke'Bryan Hayes?
Yeah. So anybody who was listening last night knows I'm the opposite. I love this trade. And it's for the reasons you like the trade as well. He's the best third baseman statistically on the defensive side by a mile. 16 defensive runs saved this season so far. The next closest guy's 8. I see this as kind of a luxury ad. I think that the offense is huge for, looking to the future. And I mean, obviously right now as well, but I think with the offensive side, I think it's kind of in the development to kind of address in the chat. Cause I think it's a good point as well. For covering up Sal, I think it.
Hold up, Norm. Spencer Steer, 3-run shot. Reds go up 4-1. All right, continue.
Yep, I saw. I was trying to stay contained, so that's massive.
That's big. It's big.
Yep.
Sorry to rudely interrupt you. Go on.
I accept for home runs, so that's fine. But no, I think Sal. If I remember correctly, Sal's played some first as well. Am I making that up? But either way, I think it just locks something down, and I think anytime you lock in positions in baseball, I don't think it's a bad thing. And when it's a guy that you get fairly cheap, we talked about the package a little bit. Rogers, who we as Reds fans know too well, had struggled quite a bit with inherited runners. I believe the stat was 16 out of 25 inherited runners scored. So basically traded that cash, which, you know, that's a Reds move, which is why you got to end up trading Stafura, who is the 9th prospect. But we were kind of talking about timelines, and I feel like Stafura isn't gonna be, you know, playing with these guys that we're kind of relying on now. So I think for that, it's the bang for buck is kind of why I rate it an 8. I think he's so good defensively is why I kind of, you know, have come to terms with me liking it a lot. And so far, I mean, Ke'Bryan he's not going to hit a lot of home runs and probably not going to hit a lot of, you know, even extra base hits. But I think if we can get the Ke'Bryan Hayes we've had thus far, even, which his red stats, obviously there's not much yet, but he's batting about 267.
That's it. I would have guessed it was even higher than that. He's uncharacteristically hit the ball well since he's been in Cincinnati or with Cincinnati. But that's also been like 3 or 4 games though.
It hasn't been long enough to really, it hasn't really been a lot to, you know, move the needle per se. But I think with it, we've talked about this with the Savant, you know, the red dots, right? Like when I'm looking at some of the things he's got, like it almost doesn't make sense. Some of the things he's been doing well and quite above average to what his, you know, expected batting average and slugging and all that stuff is. Because, you know, squared up percentage is essentially how well you're striking the ball.
Getting a barrel on the ball.
Low, but it's basically barrel and ball, right? So it's like his hard hit's pretty good for, you know, a guy of his stature. Squared up's good. He doesn't whiff a lot, which doesn't make sense for his walk percentage to be so low. So a part of me almost thinks like he has not been playing well offensively, but I think there's almost a little bit of regression back to the mean of being like, let's say it's 260. If it's 260, I am eating that up. If it's 245, I'm probably not going to be too mad about it, if, you know, because it comes down to clutch hitting and things like that, which, you know, doesn't tell the full picture on average, and we'll find out more, you know, as he plays more. But yeah, I mean, I'll say this. I think it's my favorite trade of all the trades, and I think it has a lot to do with what you were saying you liked with, you know, the years of control. And at the end of the day, I know it's $38 million locked up for 5 years, or I believe, 5 years. But I think it's like money at the end of the day. It isn't, the Reds aren't a team that are probably going to be buying in free agency a lot. So
right.
To me, it almost feels like it's money you're paying a premium for a Gold Glove guy while you have dudes like Sal Stewart that'll be coming up, Burns, Louder, Marte, like all these guys are making pennies right now in comparison to what their worth is. So by the time those guys are getting paid, Ke'Bryan Hayes, you know, may not be there, you know, whatever that ends up being in the next 5 years, which I'm not going to try to project that far out, but it's why I love it. I think you get an elite thing, and I think anytime you can get an elite thing, I think it's worth making the deal, especially for like I said, the number 9 prospect, who probably isn't going to be up with the guys that are likely going to be ahead of him when you're looking at the top prospects in the organization and the players already on the roster.
Yeah. I like your standpoint, not just with baseball, but everything. Like, you are really, really big on, like, just get me a guy who is, like, really, really good at something, and I'll find a spot for him. Side note, Santiago Espinal sacrifice fly to left field, makes the score 5-1. Noelvi Marte hit a ground rule double. Trevino singled to get first and third, and then Espinal stepping up, doing his job, shutting me the fuck up about bitching about Ke'Bryan Hayes not being in the lineup tonight, pulling through situationally. So, hey, that's how it goes. I'll bitch about you if you pull through. I'll continue to bitch about you. Just keep pulling through. But
it's like they say, you just got to bitch about it, and then it'll happen. So,
dude, it happens every single time.
I should say.
It happens every single time. I do want to comment real quick on Jeff Caning's comment again. He said, thoughts on it covering up Sal Stewart. Confusing me as a Cubs fan to cover up your top prospect. Yes, I get that. He is probably a third baseman, and I do agree, Norm. I don't know if he's played first, but generally third basemen are pretty easily to transition over to first base. I think you can definitely find some spots for him there. But between first base and DH, I mean, if you are a talent like a Sal Stewart is with the bat in your hands, believe me, you will have a spot in the lineup. It's either got first base, third base, first DH, whatever it might be. If you are hitting the ball, especially on this Reds team, and not just this Reds team, but I hate to break it to you, we are still going to have the same offensive issues probably next year as what we've had all of this year. When you have a guy that is that level of a hitter, you're going to find ways into the lineup. So I'm not really worried about that as much. I think, like I said, either if it's first base or DH, I think they'll find a spot for him out there. But it's another side note is Spencer Steer has played a fantastic first base this year. Like, the dude is just an absolute baller. So I don't know what Sal Stewart's glove is like. I'm sure it's decent. I'm sure he's fine. But, I mean, I think you're going to be sitting there looking at two very solid defensive first basemen. And then if Sal can hit, I mean, fuck, get him in the lineup whatever way it looks like. So I gave it a 4. Norm gave Ke'Bryan Hayes an 8. So we'll go on to our next individual. Zach Littell. And I did say that, right, Norm?
I believe that's right. I went to the pronunciation. Littell.
Zach Littell obviously pitched tonight. Pitched very well. Very big spot as in a Reds debut. Obviously, the Reds are almost at a point now where they almost have to win every game, or at least have the mindset that you have to go in and win every game. But you had to win this series against the Cubs, and it's, knock on wood, 5-1 now, looking decent in the top of the 7th. Never know with the bullpen, or any bullpen for that matter, in the Cubs offense. But he came in tonight and did his job and did exactly what he needed to do. But his season stats before his outing tonight, so all of this stuff is probably higher and lower since he's pitched so well. Before tonight, he came in with a 3.58 ERA, 89 Ks, a 1.12 whip, and then my biggest stat that I love the most, 21 walks in 133 innings pitched. 21 walks in 133.1 innings pitched. That is fucking insane. That, to me, this is Andrew Abbott all over again, but from the right side. You have a guy who, I mean, you can see his on the screen here, like his averages or his fastball, his velocity averages are honestly a little bit lower than what the MLB average is. But, like, I don't care. Like, the dude throws strikes. The dude mixes speeds. He doesn't pitch a flashy way. He doesn't go out and strike out a whole bunch of people. He just hits spots, mixes speeds, and doesn't allow hitters to get good barrels on the bat. So, the only issue that I had with this trade is you lose team control, or you only have team control for a remainder of this season. But this also allows you to now move Nick Martinez into the bullpen and strengthen that bullpen up and give you kind of a little bit of a platoon arm. If you have a situation where you have a Nick Lodolo go down, which just happened, if you have a situation where you have a guy who gets beat up early, gets hurt early in the game, you can move to a guy like a Nick Martinez. You also have Brent Suter in there. You have a righty or lefty that you can kind of go to and say, hey, I'm going to need you to get 3 or 4 innings from me tonight. And I think they fit that role perfectly. I think Nick Martinez in the bullpen really helps him. I know some days are better than others for Nick Martinez, but for the production that he's put out this year, I've been pretty satisfied with how Nick Martinez has pitched. But for myself, I gave the Zach Littell signing, or the trade, I should say, I gave it a 6.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'm pretty close. I had a 7, and I think the reasoning is a lot of what you're saying with the pitching flexibility, having Martinez be able to go in the bullpen. I think that's huge. We talked about, the bullpen needing some arms. Well, that's a perfect arm. Martinez has been a guy who embraces his role. He's been really good in those spots. And I think Littell has some history with being able to come out of the pen too. The Rays have, kind of been able to install that in their dudes. So I think it adds pitching flexibility across the board. If we're seeing a guy like Hunter Green come back, I know he's been getting closer with his rehab starts. I'm not as sure where Louder's at, but I would hope that he can be back by the end of the year. So I think it just bolsters the pitching rotation. I think it's a little more creative than, potentially just adding a bullpen arm and keeping it simple like that. But I think I kind of love it for that reason. You're adding, like you said, just a guy who throws strikes, gets a lot of outs. And I think when you have a guy like that, there's really nothing to complain about. And at the end of the day, obviously not having control is one thing, but that's the deadline. So I think that's the only reason why it's not higher than a 7. In this trade, Serwinowski was a part of this trade. He was the number 10 prospect in the farm. And again, I would say probably a guy similarly to Stafuro, who was probably a little blocked by all the pitching that we have currently. So kind of expendable guys in these first 2 trades. So I'm not hating the fact that those are guys that get moved.
I think the Littell trade is a perfect example of, like, if you make a run and end up making the postseason, you absolutely love this trade. Like, this is like the perfect scenario for you. You get basically a high, probably a 2 or 3 on a good team in your order to go off into the playoffs with. Like, you've upgraded your pitching staff having Littell aboard. But if you end up missing the playoffs, it's kind of like, yeah, it was cool. Like, he pitched really well for us, but we didn't make the playoffs, and like the Reds probably aren't re-signing him. I mean, we know how they operate. I wouldn't say he's going to be a Red, especially with the Burns, the Louders that they have coming up, the Petties that they have in the organization right now. So I think the 6.5 in year 7 could easily be even higher if you fuck around and find your way into the playoffs. And then if you can go into the playoffs with a healthy Green, a healthy Lodolo, a healthy Abbott, a healthy Littell, I think you really, really, really end up liking this trade then.
Absolutely. I mean, I think of the trades, this is probably the one that we could look back on and being like, this was the one. Because especially for Ke'Bryan Hayes, that kind of felt like a now and future. Obviously, Littell's now, so I think he's going to have a larger impact on the roster just based on the needs we've had. And I think that pitching flexibility is gonna be so huge because obviously Lodolo just going down last night. Like you never know who's going to be there. So being able to add another arm, who, like you've said, has great success, doesn't walk a lot of dudes. Like this is a huge guy to add. Obviously probably not going to resign this guy, but I think, like you said, if we inevitably find ourselves in the playoffs, I think it's going to be a lot to do with Zach Littell.
For sure. And on a final note, one last thing I do want to make. I have to give Nick Krall a lot of credit for this trade. I've been kind of a Nick Krall hater, I guess you could say. But going into the deadline, I really thought that the Reds needed bullpen help and starting pitching help. Because, dude, like a fucking week ago, I was sitting here like, I only feel good whenever 2 of these 5 guys are pitching right now. Like, I only feel good whenever it's Abbott or Lodolo on the mound. Whenever it's Martinez, Singer, who has pitched a hell of a lot better the last few outings. So this, like I said, this is a few outings ago whenever they lost like 5 or 6 of his outings in a row. And then you have the rookie Chase Burns. I was like, there's only 2 of those guys that I really feel confident about. So I think they need a starting pitcher. And they need bullpen. And he kind of killed 2 birds with 1 stone here. You trade for a starting pitcher. You bring in another guy to your staff that you feel really good about every 5 days when he takes the hill. And then you move one of those guys to the bullpen. You didn't have to go out and make 2 trades to fill both of those spots. You only made 1 to fill 2 spots. So props to Nick Krall. I have to give him credit there. That was a that was a really good trade, and that's why I ranked it a 6.5. So for the next one, left fielder Miguel Andujar. 2 hits on the night for the Reds as they're taking on the Chicago Cubs, 5-1 at the end of the 7th. But Miguel Andujar, 295 batting average, plays left field, by the way, probably either corner outfield, but I think left field is probably his primary position. 295 average, 6 home runs, 27 RBIs, a 758 OPS, and win 220 at-bats. His left-handed splits are very good, which I have been banging on the drum. Reds fans have been banging on the drum. We need hitters versus left-handed pitching. Versus left-handed pitching, 422 average, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, a 1.036 OPS. But the part that really stuck out to me, of his 220 at-bats, why does he only have 45 at-bats against left-handed pitching? That was what really stuck out to me.
I think it's probably more of just a product of where he was at. The A's, obviously, trying to play a lot of their young guys, have a lot of good young guys. So I would say they're looking more to play those dudes instead of a guy like Miguel, who's 30, not really in the timeline they're looking at. But I think at the end of the day, I think he's the biggest question mark, but also has kind of like the Littell factor of, I think he could potentially bring a lot of juice because I feel like these two trades were a little different than the Hayes. The Hayes trade kind of felt like a taking advantage of the situation and getting a guy on a good deal. Littell and Andujar are two guys who were addressing clear needs that this Reds team had. Left-handed pitching or batters against left-handed pitching has been the talk of the town for probably the past 3 months. And I think Andujar, I think he addresses that need perfectly. Obviously, the at-bats was where it's like, obviously he's probably not a 425 batter against left-handed pitching, but you're adding a guy who's had a lot of success on both sides, honestly, because he's putting up pretty solid numbers against right-handed pitching as well. But I think for the price, I think it's an awesome ad. Huggins was the dude traded. He's the 22 prospect in the Reds organization. So it just kind of felt like a cheap guy to give. I'm less familiar with Huggins than I was with the other prospects. But again, a guy that I'm not losing sleep over. I understand prospects, but at the end of the day, you're trading the number 22 guy for a guy who gives you a legit chance.
Right now,
especially in those left-handed hitting when we've been begging for guys to help us there.
I'm all about keeping prospects, but I want you to just keep the core prospects. If that means trading some other prospects that are down the ladder a little bit away to help the team right now, which happens to have Elly De La Cruz, one of the most marketable players in baseball, one of the best players in baseball, come and help them out now while he is in Cincinnati and while he was in town right now, I'm all for it. I'm fine trading a couple prospects away. I think we'll live. I think it'll be okay. Whenever Elly goes out of town, we'll probably go back to sucking dick unless we've really built the farm, but we haven't done it in the last 25 fucking years, so I'm not banking on it.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think of myself as an optimist. I've kind of been the opposite with the whole Cross stuff. I've seen it as we build it from the studs. It's got like a lot of the trades we look back on, there's been guys that we've acquired in them that that are a part of this team. You look back at like the Castillo trade, you're looking at Marte, you're looking at the Tyler Mahle trade. We're watching Steer right now. So some guys like that, or Fraley, he was a part of the Suarez deal, which, obviously Suarez is hitting out of his mind right now, but again, just guys, a lot of guys that are contributing on this team that came from trades, which at the end of the day is all you can really ask. So I think they've been building it, and we talked about this plenty, just personally about this feels like a time where the Reds need to start adding something, like let's have this be the year we start adding a little bit versus, kind of just being on the fence, not really selling, not really buying at the deadline like the last couple of years have been like. And I feel like Andujar was the perfect closer to it. It happened right before the deadline was up. He addressed major needs that we had. I gave him the lowest out of all of them. I gave it a 6. The only reason I really did that was just because the bats were so low. I gave the caveat just of him, being on an organization that's not going to prioritize him versus the younger players. So I think that's part of it. But again, I love the trade. It's kind of like I wanted it to give higher, but just because of there being more like, or I should say less clarity on what he's going to bring versus the assumption based on, the numbers. Like the numbers aren't telling as much as they may for, a Hayes or Littell. But again, loved the trade. And I think it was a great clincher. And I think it sends a great message to the team. We'd seen so many guys, not really make digs at the front office, but they're like, hey, let's do something.
They were speaking out. They were speaking out for sure.
We're fighting for this. Yeah. So it's like, give us some stuff and, we'll make it happen. We'll do everything in our power to get, prove that we deserved it type shit. And yeah, I mean, I think this was like kind of the perfect deadline for a small market team. They kind of did it all. They did the buy nows. They did a little bit of ad for the future. They burned a little bit, burned a little bit of their cash to get rid of Rodgers, but still getting that contract off the books.
That's fine.
So you're not adding as much this year. So at the end of the day, I loved the deadline, just as a whole. And it hasn't been a lot of games, but I feel like the Reds team has been responding as you'd expect a team who basically gets the cosign from the front office. Like, we believe in you guys. Like, let's get this shit done.
Yeah. I mean, now you kind of need the guys to step up on the team. Now you came in and found a couple pieces for them to build on. So let's see if they can go on a little bit of run here and make it happen. But to kind of round this all out, I think my average of the 3 was a 5.33, and I think your average was a 7. So, I mean, pretty similar. Our only really difference was the Ke'Bryan Hayes, and I think both of our arguments that we made or points that we made were very valid. It was just kind of a different way of looking at it. You looked at it more so into the future and the development side of things. I looked at it more of like getting a bat, something that can help on the offensive side right now. But I also want to note, like, I am not upset that they have Ke'Bryan Hayes at all. Like, I'll take Ke'Bryan Hayes on my team, but it was more so just the fact that you kind of just went out and found a guy who sucks at offense, and like, you already suck at offense. But there's a lot to be seen. So our next topic, I want to talk a little bit about the Reds' offensive inability. This is kind of what we get for canceling the show last night and putting it off tonight because, of course, last night they won. And then, of course, tonight it looks like they've been hitting the ball pretty well. And they've been hitting it for power. When I say power, not home runs, but more so doubles, extra base hits, things like that. So the topic that I wanted to talk about yesterday before we had to transition to today, and tonight it's pretty contradictive of what we're about to talk about, but I wanted to talk about their game Sunday at Bristol. And first off, just to highlight really quick at Bristol, the MLB completely bottled that. I mean, the fact that you even played the game in the first place, to the fact that you heard of them running out of food, you saw pictures of fans getting served hot dogs without buns. They had nachos and cheese without the cheese, literally just the chips. They ran out of alcohol. I mean, literally just a failure across the board, and I would guess they're probably not going to do this again. But anyways, it was still a cool kind of atmosphere. It's kind of a cool thing leading up to it. I mean, I was pretty excited for it. I sat down probably about an hour before the game, watched all the pregame stuff. I mean, it was really cool seeing like Derek Jeter, Big Papi, A-Rod, all them up there talking about the Reds and things like that, because you don't always see the Reds get national spotlight like that. But on Sunday when they played, kind of a heartbreaking loss, pretty brutal loss. Came out early, felt like things were going really well Friday or Saturday night. Came back Sunday and didn't really play the best. They had 10 hits with only 10 singles. So I kind of did some digging, and I'm like, I just feel like there is no like thump to this lineup. Like there is nobody that really consistently, outside of Ellie, consistently can hit for extra base hits. Like we need more guys who can hit doubles. We need more guys that can hit home runs. But I don't think that a lot of the hitters, like their approach should not be to go up there and swing to hit home runs. We don't have a guy like Kyle Schwarber, Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani. Obviously, those guys are absolutely insane. But we don't have guys like Eugenio Suarez, guys that just put out a lot of production on the power side of things. We have a lot of dink and dunk single type guys. And that's fine. Like, you can have that. But if you can't bunt to necessarily move runners over, get guys in scoring position, do those situational type things that you really need to be successful whenever you are constructed like the Reds lineup is constructed, it's really, 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 really fucking hard to get 4 or 5 singles in a row to ultimately lead to a run. And I think that's been an issue for them throughout the entire season. They ranked 20th in slugging percentage in all of Major League Baseball, so bottom third of the league is where they land in slugging. And kind of just like back to my point, I just think that they need more thump in this lineup. I think Andujar can kind of help with that a little bit. I know he had a 1.036 or something OPS against left-handed pitching. I think he had like a 760 OPS overall. So obviously you got a guy that can certainly hit it gap to back gap a little bit there. But like that's been the issue. Like I feel like we're kind of just banging our head against a wall that like they aren't a team that can hit home runs. I know home runs are awesome, but they are not a team. They don't have the guys that have that approach to go up there and like, hey, I'm trying to drive the ball out of the ballpark. They have a lot of singles, a lot of guys that just hit singles. I mean, you got TJ Friedl. He isn't necessarily an extra base hit guy. Matt McLain, I think he can be, but I don't think that he's completely right this year. Ellie is. I don't know if Hayes is. I think Hayes can hit doubles on the occasion, but I don't know how consistently he can do it. He's just a guy who hits really well for contact. But my point is, I think the only 2 guys who I would call like thumpers in the lineup, like guys that can drive the ball gap to gap, the guys that can get you a high number of doubles, that whenever you're hitting doubles, those ultimately will end up leading to more home runs as well because you're squaring a ball up into the gap where if you square it up good enough, it's eventually going to find a way to get out of the ballpark. I really just think it's basically Ellie and Marte, unless I'm missing somebody.
I would say those are probably the 2 guys to point at because I think the only third guy you could potentially argue is Hayes, and you kind of covered what Hayes is, and I think a part of that's just been he's been so in and out. But
I think Hayes can. I just think he's more like over the long haul. He's more of like a contact average type guy, which I am not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying they have kind of like too many of those guys in the lineup where you don't really have a guy that can just step up and like that's kind of what's nice about Will Benson. Like the guy's numbers are not always the best, but he was a guy that on any given pitch you knew he could dick a ball 450 feet. And I get all the statistics that are out there. Like he has not really been that great either, but he's kind of like a thumper in your lineup, like a guy who can hit for doubles, a guy who can drive the ball gap to gap. Like he's not, when he goes up to the plate, there's a good chance that he could hit a double. Like, you're not banking on just like a TJ Friedl, like guys like that are just kind of just slap single, hit a lot of singles type of guy.
Yeah, well, I think the big overarching thing of when you have a team that hits for contact like the Reds is you have to have clutch hitting, and that's
clutch hitting, and you have to be able to bunt. You have to be able to bunt too.
Yeah, I mean that's part
and you
of
can't even and don't even say, do not even fucking say, well, it's different in the major leagues. They don't bunt as much. I just watched them play the Los Angeles Dodgers, and they executed 3 sacrifice bunts. They are the best offense, top to bottom in baseball, and they are executing bunts to move runners over so they can put themselves in situations to execute. That's just the issue with the Reds offense. They can't fucking bunt. So whenever you can only hit singles and you can't bunt. That's why you go into so many laws like they fucking do time in and time out where you only score 1 or 2 runs for a really long stretch. The offense looks like it's dead as fuck for a while because they can't bunt, they can't move guys over, and then you're relying on just stringing along 4 or 5 singles in a row, which is next to impossible to do against major league pitching.
Yeah, I mean, that goes. I think that goes hand in hand with clutch hitting. Like, it's situational hitting. It's just, and I think that's kind of part of the issue with them being so young. Like, a lot of these guys haven't developed the clutch gene, I guess would be the easiest way to say it. And I think over the course of these last 50 games, I think it's going to be telling on how they've developed. Like, because I think at the end of the day, how many times do we see, first and second, 1 out, no outs, we don't score? Like, at the end of the day, that it's getting bad on ball, shooting, shooting a little pop up that, that floater that gets over to second base or whatever it is like that. Like, I think that a lot of times we hadn't been seeing that. And I mean, it's recency bias that we've been seeing it a little bit more than we had, but those problems are still there. Like, they aren't gone by, all these moves that have been made. Like, they still exist. But I think at the end of the day, it comes down to that situational hitting. And I think that's a lot of what baseball is at the end of the day too. Like, I think, like, when you're pouring on 12 runs in a game, that's great. But if you're going to get blanked the next game, a six run average a 6 run average is great. But between those 2 games, one of those games you lost because you didn't score. And we've seen that a lot with the Reds. And I'm as I've said, I'm optimistic. So I believe that a lot of these guys could get there. But at the end of the day, it's got to happen for them to kind of make those next strides to, making the playoffs. Because, when you're down 1 in the 9th, it takes that walk, bunt, single, something like that to get that run in. So I think it's going to be real telling these last 50 games. I think I'm obviously excited to see how we turn out with that. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to take a lot of wins to get in this year, because you look at the other 2 teams that, we're fighting for the wild card, and you're looking at their deadlines. I mean, the Padres traded the farm for a multitude of dudes, and, the Mets made a lot of trades for bullpen help. So those 2 teams were 2 of the most active teams in the deadline, and those are the 2 teams we're chasing. So it really comes down to those small details that are really the biggest parts of the game.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about situational hitting with the Reds for a really long time now. I think at certain moments they do pretty well at it, but there's definitely plenty of times where they do not. And I think that was the biggest thing with Espinal earlier in the year, like why he was playing so much, because I think he did execute it from time to time. I mean, there was a stint probably the first month and a half. He was probably one of the highest averages on the team. And I think it was because he was executing in certain situations, and I think that's ultimately why he is still seeing playing time at this point in the season. But yeah, I mean, when you talk about situational hitting, it doesn't always have to mean like getting a bunt down or like, hey, go get a hit. It's as simple as we have a guy on third. There's less than 2 outs. Like, you just need to get this ball on the ground past the pitcher, like up the middle past the pitcher, or get it to the outfield in the air. Like, you just have to execute to get that run in. And I think that, like, they haven't done that at a consistent rate this year. But, yeah, like I said, it's kind of hard to say right now. Like, they won last night. I mean, they didn't hit very well last night, but they did enough to win. And then tonight they've obviously have hit the ball pretty well the way it looks. I mean, see some home runs, see some doubles, couple ground rule doubles. So that thump I've been talking about, I think it is present tonight. I just don't think you always see it very consistently, which no team is ever going to see consistent home runs, consistent doubles. That's whenever you fall back on your situational hitting, your ability to lay down a bunt, to move runners over, whenever you have a cold night on the offense that you need to scratch one across. And that's where I think they're not going to figure it out anymore at this point in the season. But I think as like a focus for next year is like that's got to be a vital, vital, vital part of their offense. Is their ability to bunt? Is their ability to show up in certain situations? And bunting you can practice. Situational hitting you really can't. Like it's a lot more from like a coaching side of things is talking through it with guys, like certain situations, what you need to do, and then ultimately like you have spring training, you have the games and things like that. Like when you get in those situations, like you just got to execute because there's really no way to like simulate that. I mean, I guess you could in practice to a sense, but there's also a difference between going out and doing it in practice versus doing it in a game. So I think a lot of it is just like IQ with some of these guys too. Like not that they're dumb, but they're like obviously really young players. And it's easy for you and I to sit here on a couch and sit there and watch and be like, oh, there's guys on first and third, one out. Like just fucking put the ball in play, get the guy from third at home. Where like these guys are thinking about a million different things at once whenever they're going up to the plate, where something simple like that and what their job to do in that given situation, maybe they aren't thinking about it clearly enough. Maybe they aren't considering it enough. Where, like I said, like guys like you and I, like we don't have any pressure with us. We don't have to go up to the plate and face 98-mile-per-hour fastballs. So we're thinking about things like that. Where I think a lot of that will just come as some of these guys develop and whatnot as well. Is just kind of like understanding what they need to do in certain situations, and I think they'll improve upon that. But yeah, offensive inability, I think it's been an issue for the Reds for a while, and hopefully it's something they can improve on, and hopefully they can catch some fire here in Andahar, and if Hayes wants to hit as well, maybe they can give him a little bit of thump as we go on. So next topic we want to talk about with the Cincinnati Reds. This is also kind of old news. I mean, kind of think we know what the answer is at this point. Probably don't need to spend a ton of time on it just with the Nick Lodolo news. But I wanted to talk about where does Chase Burns go when Hunter Greene came back. So obviously when Hunter Greene came back, you had 6 starters at that point, and one of them you would need to move to the bullpen or find some other alternative for him. And my best scenario was let's just move Burns to the closing role. You cut down his innings significantly. Emilio Pagan, I think he's a fine closer, but I think he's an average closer on an average team, which is kind of what the Reds are. But I think if you threw Burns into that spot, he's got a ton of swing and miss stuff. He's got the fastball he can bring up to 100 miles per hour. He's got a nasty slider. I think that he would fit really, really well in that role. I think it was a way for you to maximize your team, maximize what you have on your roster to your fullest potential, moving him there. And then you kind of have a win-win with just cutting down on his innings, because at this point with Lodolo going down, like he has to remain a starter unless you're going to move Martinez in there in place of him. But you're obviously not going to do that because you already moved Martinez to the bullpen. But I don't know. I don't know how many more starts we're going to get out of Burns. Like they're going to probably shut him down after the next few. And I thought moving him to the closing role would at least allow him to continue to stay with the team and to be able to use him longer into the year. And I think he's just a better pitcher than Emilio Pagan too. But what are your thoughts? I know, like I said, kind of dead in the water at this point with the whole Lodolo thing yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I still think there's potential for it just because they're inevitably going to be cutting his innings anyway. Obviously, they've been closely monitoring that, so I don't think it's necessarily rolled out. I mean, the Lodolo injury, 15-day DL, so it's not a season ender. Obviously, we know Lodolo's had issues staying healthy in the past, which I guess it is what it is. I mean, but I think with Burns, obviously, I mean, if you're just looking at what you would want from a closer, he does all of that. Like you said, a lot of swing and miss stuff, nasty slider, 100-mile-per-hour fastball. So I think it's a great idea. Obviously, it's easier said than done now with there being a little bit more complications. Potentially if Greene comes back a little faster, it kind of falls into the same type of situation, depending on obviously the louder stuff as well. So I think obviously it would be a great idea. We'll see if it's possible. It wouldn't be as soon as we probably would have liked it to. But I think it's definitely something that'll be interesting to monitor going forward.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think that if you want to find a talent like Chase Burns, I don't think his numbers speak to how good like he actually has been. He's kind of a thrower right now, not so much a pitcher where he just gets bailed out by having really good stuff and throwing really hard and having a slider that is just breaks 8 feet. But I think sometimes he gets a little lazy, puts something over the top of the plate, but he's 22 years old. Like that shit's gonna happen and whatnot. But I think like the stat that I saw was his like strikeout percentage in the first inning is like 42% or something like that, and that's counting like the Boston game where he only got one out and let up 7 runs. So I think like a first time that hitters see him, he's really, really, really hard to hit just because of the stuff that he has, which is why I think he would be perfect in a closing role. And I know some people on X kind of came at me like, oh, you're a fucking idiot. Why do you want to put him in the bullpen? He's a starter in the future. Like, I'm not saying put him in as a closing role for like good and just leave him there. I'm saying to maximize the talent of your current roster on this team and the given situation that he's in where you're going to get to a point where you're going to have to cut his innings. I think that move made some sense, but it's kind of a pipe dream at that point, and it's really nothing at this point. But yeah, I just thought it was something to consider, and I thought it was a valid argument or something that would be interesting, and I really do think it would have helped them. But as we said, Nick Lodolo went down. Not going to happen. So our last Reds topic of the night. 8 games remaining, 49. I'm not going to count this one a win yet. They're up 5-1 heading to the bottom of the ninth. So going into this Cubs series, they had 50 games left in the season. 29 are against the NL Central, and the Reds have a record of 11-15 against the NL Central this year, which is not ideal when over half your games are against your division, which you have not performed in very well. So I did the math, or I looked back in the kind of the last few years, and it seems to be a trend over the last, like, I think basically up to COVID. I think that's where I left off, where if you hit 89 wins, like that typically gets you in the playoffs. Obviously, we talked about this year might be different. You might need to get to 90 plus just with all the competitiveness that is in the NL Central and kind of the teams that are battling it out for the wild card right now. So that number may be 90 or even higher, but I did 89 just because that's been what's consistent the last 4 to 5 years, which would put them at 31-19 the rest of the way. Obviously, if they hold on tonight, that would start off 2-0. That would tack off 2 off of those 29 games that they have against the NL Central with 27 remaining. And obviously, that is a fantastic start to the last 50 of the games of the year. But I don't know, Norm. Do you think that's doable? Do you think getting to 90 wins is doable for this team?
I definitely think it's doable. I think this Cubs series has probably changed their mind a little bit, to be honest. I was probably a little more neutral beforehand, just based on the simple numbers of 29 games against the teams you're 11-15 against. But it does feel like they're kind of catching a stride a little bit. I think the Braves series even. I think the Bristol thing was unfortunate because maybe it's because they scored 1 run in the rain there, where I was like, I feel like we win if it's Saturday night and Burns is pitching. But it didn't work out that way. But at the end of the day, I think it's doable. I think the bigger concern is 90 enough, or is 89 enough? I think, as I alluded to before with the moves the Padres and Mets have made, they're obviously going for it. And they got a little bit of a head start on us. So I think when you're comparing it to those teams, it's going to be difficult. I haven't looked up what their strength of schedules are going the rest of the way. But it does feel like it's probably got to be more than 90. Maybe it's low 90s, maybe it's mid 90s. We never know if a team's going to be, falling off at the end of the year. But at the end of the day, I think as you said, the NL's been extremely good this year. So I think when you're comparing it just to the NL in general, it feels like we're going to need more than what's normal, if that makes sense. Like, because when you're looking down the board, you're seeing a lot of teams with a lot of wins, and I think the Reds can do it. If we're comparing just like the last 10 games, the Reds are 6-4 in the last 10, Mets 3-7 in the last 10. Padres obviously been hotter with them being 7-3 in the last 10. But I think when you're comparing those, I feel like it's just got to be when we're looking at the last 10s for the rest of the year, it's probably got to be 6-4, probably got to be 7-3. I would say got to win most of the series going forward. Whether that's sweeping or just winning it, I think that's the way you chip away at these deficits, and you hope one of the other teams falters. But if not, if you're continually winning series, you're going to be putting yourself in a situation that you got a good shot.
Yeah, I think something that is almost like they need to do at some point over the course of the next 48 games, which are kind of on their way of doing it now. It's like they about got to go on like a 8 to 10 win streak at some point, I think, to ultimately kind of make up some significant ground, because excuse me, on nights where like you win, the Padres win, like you're not gaining anything. So you're going to if you win 8 to 10 in a row, or if you win like something like 11 of 12, 11 of 13, like they're probably not winning that with you, and you're going to have a chance to gain some gains on them. So I think at some point over the course of the next 48 games, like they're going to have to find a winning streak somewhere in here. I think like winning series is definitely good. I think if they win every series from here on out, they probably put themselves in a really, really, really close spot to get into the playoffs. But I really think if they want to make a real shot at this thing, I think they're going to have to go on some kind of win streak and just get hot, and hopefully that just leads to getting some momentum, getting guys some confidence heading into the postseason. Because fuck, man, I'll take our pitching against anybody, especially if Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo are healthy. If you get into the playoffs, that's my thing with this Reds team. Just like get in the playoffs. Like I trust the pitching will take care of itself, and then if we're playing well offensively, or if we can just string enough along, like it's baseball, man. Like just get hot at the right time and see what happens. And if you got starting pitching, like you're in every game.
No doubt, man. Like, I think that's almost why I think it's twofold. I think Reds fans have been so, I'll call it passionate about the deadline and about this team because the starting pitching is so good, and we have a guy like Elly. Like those two things, it's like those are the type of things that they add up, and those are the type of teams that they make runs. And it does feel like this team has the juice to if they got in, but the problem is you got to get in first. And I think, like I said, I think they have an okay chance to. I'm not going to say it's a good chance. I'm not going to say it's a great chance. But I think they have a team that can go on a run that you're talking about. And the thing is maybe it's not a 10-win streak. Maybe it's we get 5-win streaks here, you lose a game, get a 4-game win streak, lose a game. Like it's either having that one big one or having a lot of little ones, So at the end of the day, it's stringing together wins. And I think they have the pitching to do so, and their pitching's been proving that time and time again. Like we look at last night, Lodolo goes out, bullpen pitches over 7 innings, had about 2 earned, I believe, and we come out with that win. Like if the pitching's coming along like that, you're going to have a great chance to win when your pitching's holding them under 3 runs. So I think if that's how you string them together, is you get that pitching and you see where you land.
Yes, sir. Hopefully they can get hot this last few series into the year. And I think that was also kind of why I wanted them to be so aggressive at the deadline, or kind of like go all out and try to help win now, is because not only like the Elly thing, but like you have pitching to make it run. Like you can go into a series with the Los Angeles Dodgers, like a World Series favorite, and feel like you can be competitive in that series and maybe fuck around and find out because you have the pitching. So that was my biggest thing. I was just looking on Twitter while you were talking, Norm. Fucking Tito. he had Sam Mole in the ninth inning to close the game out. They're up 5-1. He had 2 outs, and I assume the Cubs probably had a righty coming up or something. And Tito went out there and took him out and put Santillan in for the last out of the game.
Yep.
People are like, Jesus fucking Christ, this guy is not fucking around. He's not taking any chances. It's like they don't have it. They cannot take chances at this point.
Care, man. Yeah. Lock down the win.
Give me the win.
Which Santillan just did. I did notice that because Mole came in from I think he pitched against Tucker in the bottom of the 8th, and he ended up getting his 3 outs. And then I think Tito's like, you know what? Let's not fuck around. Let's just close the door on this thing and go on to tomorrow.
No, I mean, at this point in the season and the position that they're in, being 3 games out of a playoff spot, like, you cannot take anything for granted at this point. So I'm right there with you, Tito. Don't take any chances. Don't try to fuck anything up. We literally just saw the Reds come back from like 11-3 the other night. So, like, anything's possible.
Right.
Switching gears here onto Ohio State. Ohio State has come into camp. I think they've gotten 4 or 5 practices in by now. We talked a little bit about this yesterday. At this point in the year, everything's awesome. Everybody looks spectacular. Everybody's in the best shape of their life. They've developed so much since last year. Probably some overreactions about the quarterback position for whether it's Ohio State, whether it's the Browns, whether it's the Bengals. Always overreaction at the quarterback position. But kind of just wanted to briefly talk about Ohio State here. Sounds like Julian Sayin, first day was a little rough for him and Keenholz. Sounds like day 2, pretty even between the two. And then day 3, I think it was Sunday. Sound like Julian Sayin really, really separated himself and kind of started that trajectory of like, hey, like I'm the guy. I'm going to be the guy. So I think Julian Sayin will end up being the guy. I think that he's a more talented, has more arm talent, more prolific passer than what Lincoln Keenholz is. I think Keenholz is a good athlete. I think he's just a little bit raw when it comes to playing the quarterback position. And I think it's Julian Sayin's job to lose. I think Ryan Day isn't going to take any chances for a guy who is also highly touted and highly recruited like Julian Sayin was. I don't think he's trying to take any chances by telling that guy to take a back seat, and haven't seen him transfer out, going somewhere, having a lot of success, and then maybe Keenholz doesn't work out. Similar to like a Kyle McCord type situation in a way. I think it's going to be Sayin. I think as you start to hear this week into next week, I would say that you'll probably hear more and more and more about how well Sayin is playing. You'll probably start to hear that he's starting to gain some confidence, look better, kind of conducting the offense. Really just think you're going to start to see him grow over the course of the next week or so. And I would say by the end of next week, I think that Ryan Day will officially name him the starting quarterback.
Yeah, and I mean it's obviously what we've all been expecting. I mean, at the end of the day, the talk's been saying for a reason. I mean, obviously recruiting's one thing. You got to go win the job, and I think that's something that, you know, we're starting to hear more and more of, that he's kind of locking it down. But at the end of the day, I think as you said, he's got the best talent. I think as long as he's, you know, getting in tune with the offense and you know, making connections with JJ, I think it'll all be well.
Yeah, it was funny. I was listening to Joel Klatt this morning, and he was talking about Ohio State, and he was basically like, they have 2 options, and he's like, I mean, can they fuck up with either option? Like, you have number 4 on your team. Like, shit's hitting the fan. Like, they can both throw a football, right? Just tell them throw it in the vicinity of number 4, and you'll figure it out.
No doubt, man. I mean, Jeremiah. I mean, the last show I was on, that was the topic. I mean, the guy is the guy. Like, I don't even know how to describe him. He's not human. He's the best prospect probably in a while. And at least from a freshman standpoint, the most polished freshman we've seen. And at the end of the day, throw that man the ball, and if he's not open, you got Tate on his slant. So I mean, I think the receiving core, the offense, like at the end of the day, there was a lot of moving parts. You know, we lose some line, lose the running back crew. lose quarterback, but the constants are the constants. Tate and Smith are back. They both were impressive last year. I feel like there's been a lot of talk about some other dudes. Like I've heard a lot of Porter talk. I know Mylan Graham was a highly touted recruit.
Brandon Ennis
I'm interested to see
really
where
well.
Ennis comes in. Right. I'm interested to see where he comes in. I feel like they've been trying to get him touches, which, I mean, obviously with punt return and whatnot, it's harder to make work with that. But I'm obvious. I mean, this is Ohio State. I mean, we're going to be excited about the receiving core. And I think that's just why it's so attractive to quarterbacks. It's why Sayin came here in the first place. And I think Ryan Day's proven time and time again, he's a great offensive mind, and he knows how to get guys into, or add guys or be beneficial to dudes that are doing the offense. Like Hartline isn't going to miss a beat. I feel like I've seen things about lost Chip Kelly. That's a huge loss. I mean, maybe Chip Kelly's great. But we essentially just promote a guy that was inevitably going to be our offense coordinator someday. He was either doing it here or somewhere else. So, I mean, it's Hartline's time to shine. I think at the end of the day, I feel like he just gets looked at as being a recruiter because of how good the receivers have been. But, I mean, I think at the end of the day, the receivers are coming here because he's a great coach. But, I mean, at the end of the day, this guy gets dudes in here, and I think he knows how to use them too, which I think is something that's kind of overlooked as a coordinator. At the end of the day, your job as offense coordinator is to get your weapons the ball. And I think as a former receiver coach, I think he'll be getting the good receivers the ball.
Yeah, without a doubt. I'm excited to see Hartline take over the offense. I think it's something that he was not necessarily ready for a couple years ago. I think that's kind of why 2023 was a little bit of a shit show with Kyle McCord. Obviously, he was a little bit of an issue. Ryan Day took it back. I think Ryan Day was stretched so across the board running the offense, trying to be the head coach, where I think going into 2024, he finally realized, I got to take a step back. And I don't think Hartline is quite ready for it. I'm going to bring in my mentor, Chip Kelly, who I trust. I can trust him with the offense. And I can have him put his arm around Brian Hartline for a year and really so Hartline gets a chance to learn from him, pick his brain as you kind of go on through the year. So I think over the course of the last 2 years has been a really good learning lesson. I mean, he's obviously coached with Ryan Day since the day Ryan Day has been the head coach at Ohio State. He obviously had a year with Chip Kelly, two really good offensive minds. So I think you're right. I think he's ready to kind of take that next step. I did want to talk about Brandon Ennis. I've listened to a lot of Ohio State podcasts the past few days just about what guys are doing in camp, and Brandon Ennis is really impressed. I think he's going to play that kind of JSN to a Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave role for Ohio State this year. I think you're going to see him in the slot a lot, kind of get some linebackers and some safeties on him. He's kind of a technician whenever it comes to route running, really crisp routes, really good in and out of breaks. He's like your premier yak guy, yard after catch guy. Get him in the middle of the field, get him the ball. I mean, you even saw that last year as a sophomore, and I think he's just going to take an elevated role this year. And I'm really excited to see what Ennis is going to come. I mean, I think he's really going to play that role of JSN where you have Olave and Wilson on the edge, and, oh, yeah, guess what? Our third receiver is actually going to lead the team in receiving yards this year because he's really fucking good. And I think Brandon Ennis can do exactly that. I know in the spring you heard kind of what you said, Quincy Porter, Mylan Graham, guys like that, and you're kind of like, oh, maybe he will give Brandon Ennis a little bit of a competition, but no, I think from the shit I've heard, the shit I've read, sounds like Brandon B.I. is kind of not locking down that wide receiver 3 spot, and I'm all for it. He came from South Florida, right in the same neighborhood Jeremiah came from. They only breed dogs down there. Give me some more dogs on the field. In other news
Absolutely,
for Ohio
man.
State, our boy Caden McDonald listened to multiple podcasts and read multiple things on this. The dude has been basically unblockable through the first 2 practices. And that's also these same guys that are giving the offensive line a ton of fucking credit, saying how good and how polished and how good that core has been. So Caden McDonald, I think he's just an absolute fucking beast. I mean, he's a massive human being. We saw him show some flashes last year, most notably the goal line stand against Penn State, where he was fucking that Penn State center up, and he was basically the reason why they didn't score in 4 straight times on the goal line. But I'm expecting really big things from him. I am a little bit worried about the defensive tackle spot as a whole. I'm not concerned so much with the talent that's there. I think it's going to be Edric Houston and Caden McDonald. Caden McDonald, obviously, just talked about, really good talent, fucking huge kid from the state of Georgia. And then Edric Houston, also coming from Buford, Georgia. Caden McDonald wasn't from Buford, but they're both from Georgia is what I'm getting at. Anyways, Edric Houston, also a 5-star that's converted to D-tackle. So I'm not worried about like the production there. I think if like those two guys are playing consistently, I think that we are still going to see really good play out of defensive tackles. I just get a little worried whenever you start to have injuries and things like that, and they're going to really need kind of those 3rd, 4th, and 5th guys at that spot to step up and kind of take on that role, so then you can give those guys breaks. If one of them happens to go down, you can feel comfortable putting another one of those guys in there. Edric Houston did go out with a leg injury. I think it was the 1st or 2nd day of camp. Just listening to something today, it sounds like he should be returning here very, very, very shortly. So excited about Caden McDonald. I think he's going to be an absolute beast, especially if he stays healthy this year.
Yeah, and I mean, as I'm looking down the depth chart, I'm seeing if it's familiar name, the old Will Smith Jr.
Will Smith, yep.
So, I mean, obviously, not a lot of experience in the group. I think that's kind of the biggest concern. But at the end of the day, I think, as you look across the D line, I mean, there's a lot of dudes there. I mean, we've been recruiting well for a while now, and it's just these guys' time. It's their chance to put their names on things here at Ohio State. So I think the concern, I think in a lot of the places, is a similar thing where it's I'm not sure about this guy, more so because of I haven't been able to see him play versus versus there being like I'm not sure what the talent's looking like there. And I think I feel like I see that across the board as I'm looking at, just the depth chart in general, offense, defense, like similar with the offensive line. Like there's some new faces in there, but at the end of the day, you've been kind of hearing similar things where it's like, these guys, they're polished, and I think those are the type of words I like to hear from offensive line. Like, that means we're doing our assignments. And I think sometimes offensive line is as simple as that. Are we getting that double team and getting up to the blocker? Are we identifying, blitzes and then, making calls correct based on that? And I think that's a huge thing with, Hinsman being there at center. He's been around. So I think that's kind of where, especially at college, I feel like it starts there and spreads out from an assignment factor. Obviously tackles get a lot of the love just with, from the NFL, I feel like that begins and then kind of drops down to college. But I think the center has a massive importance in college. And I think Hinsman's being there has me pretty confident going into next year.
Yeah, I think the O-line is going to be something that the team can lean on. I think obviously they have a lot of guys returning. They brought in a couple transfers at the tackle spots. So Owenwa from Rice and then Philip Daniels from Minnesota. I think really the only competition that they have on the offensive line for right now, I would say Owenwa is probably going to be left tackle. I think it's Luke Montgomery, probably left guard. Hinsman obviously at center. And then I think it's going to be that right guard, right tackle spot. That's kind of a combination between three guys right now. I think Tegra is the guy that is slotted to probably start there if the season were to start today at right guard. And then you have Austin Searveld, who had a really good year last year, who's sliding out to right tackle. Heard nothing but really good things about Austin. But I think it really is going to come down to, and then the third guy, Philip Daniels. He's the guy that they brought in as a transfer tackle from Minnesota. I think it's going to come down to who is better. Is it Tegra at right guard or is it Daniels at right tackle? Because Searveld played inside all of last year. So if it's Daniels who's better at tackle than what Tegra is at right guard, you just move Sierraveld in, put Daniels at tackle, and like you're rolling. But I think the big thing right now, they probably have, I think, 6, 7 guys. I've heard some good things about Ian Moore as well. I think he's a sophomore tackle from Indianapolis area. Could be wrong on his location, but I do think he's from Indiana somewhere. But I think there's 6 to 7 guys that they feel pretty good about. But obviously last year we saw a ton of movement on the offensive line, a ton of injuries on the offensive line, where they ended up having to use 8 or 9 guys. So realistically, 6 to 7's, I mean, I would bet most college football teams wish that they felt good about 6 to 7 offensive linemen right now at this point in the camp. So nothing to complain about there from the Buckeyes side of thing of where they're at and who they think that they can trust heading into the season. But I think they ultimately would like to get kind of that 7, 8, even 9 guys that they feel like they could feel comfortable with throwing them in any given situation and feel like they're not going to have production drop off a whole lot. Jeff Canning did come in with another comment. I do want to hit him up. Appreciate you, Jeff. You've been commenting a lot tonight. Appreciate the interaction. Everyone thought Marv was a standout in the class of first-round receivers from Ohio State. Jeremiah is a standout compared to Marv. That's how good he is. Facts.
I was going to say, I don't know if there's much to say about that. I think he's just
totally agree. Totally agree, Jeff.
Yeah, I think he's
100% agree.
There.
So, yeah, I think the last part before we get into kind of our position breakdown, upgrade or downgrade. Did you have something you wanted to say?
Oh no, I was just making sure I gave James Peoples some love. He's someone. I think
he's going to be really good.
I feel like it gets overlooked because he's a third stringer on a team, but when a true freshman is the clear-cut third stringer on a team like last year that has 2 running backs who could have been first-round picks, like I'm looking at James Peoples and I'm super excited.
Have you seen a picture of that guy?
He's built like a brick house, yeah.
He got fucking huge.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know
how
current of the pictures I've seen, but I mean, he's built.
Yeah, if you see any pictures of him after like winter workouts and all the summer and lifting and shit, dude, he is fucking jacked. He got big from last season. I expect a lot from him. I think he can be really good as well. The last position group that I wanted to hit on that a lot of these podcasts and beat writers that are at the practices and whatnot have been talking up is the defensive end spot. Just the ability to rush the passer, which I'm assuming I didn't listen too awfully close. I'm kind of usually like, as I do a bunch of shit, I listen to a fuck ton of podcasts, but I usually listen to podcasts as I'm doing a lot of shit, so I don't always catch all the details. But I think it's been a lot of like 1s versus 2s right now. I don't think it's been a lot of like 1 versus 1s. But from what they've been saying, the defensive ends have been active as fuck. And that is Bo Atkins, the transfer from North Carolina. CJ Hicks, they said, has been playing very, very well, which is awesome. I want a guy like him who is just like a freak of nature on the athletic side of things. I want him on the football field. Like, there has to be a role for that guy somewhere on the field. He's just a freak athlete. So I'm glad to hear some positivity from him. And then obviously the 2 guys that kind of rotated in last year, Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson. So I don't know. As we get into like these position by position breakdowns of whether it's an upgrade or a downgrade, I think I might have a hot take for that position, but we can get into it from there. Other than that, Norm,
I don't want to.
I said once we get into it, we'll go position by position.
All right, where do you want to start at?
Well, I was just going to ask, do you have anything else, anything that you saw, anything you want to comment on from the Ohio State front, at least this far into camp?
I mean, just another thing I wanted to add. It's almost like a fun fact. I mean, I was talking about Peoples. I didn't want to overlook C.J. Donaldson too. Just when I was looking into him, something I'd found out about him, C.J. Donaldson was recruited as a tight end.
Really?
And yeah, so this dude, like we're talking about Peoples being built, C.J. Donaldson, bigger dude overall, but similar vibe. You know, taller, a little thicker, well, a little more weight, obviously, with the height. But honestly, it almost gives me similar vibes to last year. Like, which both of these, I'd say both of these guys are probably more in the thumper category than, I would say Henderson being lightning. So it might be a little more thump versus thunder and lightning. But I think he's an interesting ad as well. Obviously, Peoples is the guy I'm probably a little more excited about just overall. But I think it clearly shows, Donaldson fairly highly recruited, a 3-star tight end. Like he'll have some ability out of the backfield, which I think is a little interesting. As we kind of go along with the season, and because I feel like one thing that we noticed in the playoffs last year was, I remember thinking during the season, I was like, I feel like Henderson isn't getting a lot of receiving reps. Like it feels like a guy that's just an easy guy. Throw it out there, he'll make plays from there. And I think that's kind of like a hidden trick that they brought out in the playoff, and they started utilizing him a lot more in the pass game. So I'm interested to see. Obviously, I'm not as familiar with Donaldson as I am with Peoples, but I think it's interesting to see, how he falls into the pass game as well. So I'm pretty excited with running back group, which, when you're looking at losing 2 guys to the NFL in the second round, generally you're assuming that there is a large fall off, but I'm not sure that's there with this group. So that was the one thing I wanted to say. Like, I think these dudes are pretty damn good too, and I'm interested to see how it all plays out.
Yeah, I'm excited about that position group too. I think James People has the ability to be like a superstar. I think he could be really, really good when it's all said and done. Just kind of the point, we've only seen him very limited edition of James Peoples to this point, but we're about to find out. So, all right, let's get into this position breakdown. Quarterback, upgrade or downgrade? I'm going to say probably a downgrade, but I don't think it's a downgrade in terms of talent. I think that Will Howard provided something, at least on the leadership side of things, that I don't think we're going to either get out of either Lincoln Keenholz and Julian Sayin. I think from a talent perspective, it definitely could be an upgrade. But I mean, if you look at the quarterbacks of the last few national champions at Ohio State, they haven't necessarily been like the most talented. They've just always have been like really good leaders, really smart decision makers, and like a guy that a lot of guys want to rally around, which I think is exactly what Will Howard is. I think Julian Sayin's a little bit of a quiet kid right now. Obviously, he can come out of his shell a little bit as he gets further into the season and whatnot. But I just think it's kind of crazy to call a guy an upgrade who hasn't taken a college snap to this point, upgrade from a quarterback that just won a national championship. But I do think there's a chance that it could be an upgrade in the end.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of said what I was thinking exactly. Like it's something I can't come to say upgrade. I mean, Will Howard, we just won a national championship with that dude last year. And I think the leadership is exactly the thing that he brought more than anything, honestly. And I think that's going to be something that's interesting. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be Sayin who takes on that role. A lot of times it's easier when it comes from the quarterback position, but I think there's other dudes across the team and across the offense that, I think could take up that mantle as well. But yeah, I mean, at this point, you just simply can't give an upgrade to a quarterback that hasn't played and the previous one just won a national championship.
Yep. I think the talent could be better, but you can't give it an upgrade as of today. Running back, you got to go downgrade. You got 2 NFL talents that went out the door. It's got to go good downgrade.
Same reasons. And I think just even from a depth perspective, as much as I am excited about C.J. Donaldson, I don't think the James Peoples, C.J. Donaldson combo is Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson. I mean, like you said, that's 2 second-round picks. So obviously that's not going to be the case. But again, like we're hyping up Peoples, and I think he's every bit as good as those 2 guys, or will end up being, I should say. So at the end of the day, it would come down to C.J. Donaldson, which I'm gonna probably say that's not gonna happen that way. But I am happy with the room, but I'd say a downgrade in comparison.
Tight end, definitely an upgrade. Bringing in Max Clare, he's the best player in the portal. I think he's gonna. Lathan Ransom literally went to Ohio State's coaching staff after playing a dog shit Purdue team and said, "You guys got to get that guy. Like, he's really fucking good." They went out, they got him. I think he's gonna add another dimension to this offense. He also provides in the run game. I think he's kind of a piece to this team people aren't talking about enough because he's really fucking good, and that's 100% an upgrade for that position.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't even I can't ever pronounce it, but Kakmarek or whatever,
Kazmarek, yeah.
I feel like he's a solid dude as well. I feel like it like clears the big ad with the getting the top tight end, the transfer portal. But I think both of those dudes could have some pretty solid years.
And
obviously
Jelani
Claire,
Thurman.
Ohio boy as well.
And Jelani Thurman.
Sorry. Yeah, I mean
that dude's big as fuck. I mean he played like he scored in meaningful moments. I think he had a touchdown against Penn State last year. Like he's played meaningful snaps before.
Yeah, I mean, I think this might be the most clear upgrade to be but
for sure.
As we go along, maybe not, but I love the tight end room.
Offensive line. I'm going to upgrade because majority of the group's back. They got a couple pieces in the portal. They have 4 of their 5 guys back. I mean, the 2 guys that they lost weren't even with them for the playoff run. So the 2 guys they lost were our NFL players. Obviously, the Bengals got an absolute steal in picking up Seth McLaughlin off of as a free agent. But even if he did stay healthy, I think he would have probably been like a first, second, third round draft pick. Obviously, Josh Simmons was a first round draft pick, went to the Chiefs. Neither one of those 2 guys were there for the playoff run. 4 of those 5 guys that were there for the run are back. Josh Fryer was the right tackle last year for that playoff run. He fucking sucked. I think it's going to be an upgrade.
Donovan Jackson as well, right? Pushed out the tackle.
Yeah, they rotated like a core of Searveld, Hinsman, Montgomery, and Tegra. Well, basically 3 guys for the 2 guard spots. They rotated in and out a lot throughout the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, my thing more so is like, I feel like if those injuries don't happen, I'm probably saying downgrade.
Right.
But honestly, I think because of the injuries and a lot of these guys getting time, like, it's hard to say because of all the talent that was just drafted, like kind of similar to the running backs, but I feel like at worst it's as good because of all these guys getting run. So I know that's kind of a non-answer, but I feel as good. I don't know if I feel better or worse necessarily, but I feel good basically because of the injuries that happened. Like they opened up the opportunities to dudes to play, and they helped us make a run. So if we're just adding experience to it, fuck it, I'll give it an upgrade.
Wide receiver, this is easy. Upgrade. Year 2, Jeremiah, he's going to be insane. Carnell on a slant, he's going to be insane. You have Brandon Ennis, you have Bryson Rogers, you have Quincy Porter, you have Mylan Graham, you have a plethora of riches. Upgrade for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I think this is just the Ohio State thing. It's like, how many receivers came back after one was drafted in the first round? And we had more come back than we had drafted, so that's just an upgrade. More guys are back.
And now Carnell's just the next one up. Then just the next first rounder that's coming out of Columbus. That's just how it is. That's just how it goes, and that's just how Brian Hartline rolls. All right,
sir.
Defensive side of the ball. Defensive line. This is interesting. I think I have to go downgrade. I think specifically for the D tackle spot, I kind of worry about that a little bit. Obviously losing Ty Hamilton. Tyleik Williams was really fucking good. You're replacing both of those guys. Now, you're replacing them with guys who have experience and that are really good too. So I don't know if it'll ever turn into an upgrade, but I think it could essentially be like pretty similar to what it was last year. But I think from a D tackle perspective, you definitely have to say that it's a downgrade. And then probably from defensive end spot too, I think you have to say it was a downgrade just with JT and Sawyer hitting the road. But like
Yep.
I think I think D end. I don't. This is the hot take I was talking about. I don't think it's crazy to say that I think our DN play could be better than what it was last year. By the time this is all said and done, I think Sawyer and JT were awesome. Obviously, like they were really fun players to watch. But like, it felt like up until that playoff run, like both of those guys kind of left a lot to be desired at Ohio State. And I think that last 4-game stretch where, I mean, they deserve all the credit in the world. They played out of their mind. They were really fucking good. They made some of the biggest plays in Ohio State football history. They deserve all the credit in the world for doing that. But still, to that point, I think if that season would have ended after the Michigan game, I think there would have been a lot of Ohio State fans being like, Jack Sawyer and JT were not at all what we thought they were going to be. And I think with the guys that are coming into the room now, Caden Curry has played significant snaps before. Kenyatta Jackson, who I forget which teammate it was or which coach it was, basically came out and said he has a potential to be a first-round talent. And I'm not surprised by that. I always thought that dude had a high fucking motor and played his balls off whenever he played. He's played significant snaps before. And then you're also bringing in Bo Adkins, who has obviously spent some time getting a lot of snaps in at North Carolina. So, yes, you're replacing two guys who went to the NFL, but you're replacing them with guys who have played meaningful snaps, playing in meaningful games. I will call the entire D-line a downgrade just because of what left, but I would not be at all surprised if at their peak, if they are actually better than what last year's team was, or last year's defensive line unit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's crazy to say at all because I mean, I feel like there was times that you had feelings of like during the regular season, not the playoffs, obviously, like you're saying, but it's like, you know, where's the big play from Sawyer? Where's the big play from JT? Like, I haven't seen something in a while, and so I think that leaves the potential for that happening for sure.
But even JT's side of things, like, was there anything you could really point to other than that one Penn State game back in 2022? Like, I really do think that if the game ended after that Michigan game, there would have been a lot of Ohio State fans saying that there was a lot that those two left on the table, and they were not at all. We didn't get out of them what we thought we were getting out of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's completely fair.
Yeah, so definitely think there's a potential. I think D tackle is going to be tough. I think Tyleik Williams is really fucking good. I don't know if like replacing him is not going to be easy, but I think that those two guys that are going to be slotted there can be really good. But yeah, I'm excited about the unit. I think they probably have one of the bigger question marks on the entire team, and there's talent in that room for sure. I'm not counting them out. I think that they have the ability to be really fucking good, so I'm excited to see what they can bring this year. Let's go corners. I'm going to call this an upgrade. I think Igbinosun, I think this is going to be the third year that he's been at Ohio State, which is wild. I did not think it just doesn't seem like he's been there quite that long. I think he's going to take a next step. I think he's going to really work on trying to cut down on his penalties. I think what you've heard about him is he's worked really hard to try to cut down on those penalties. I think Jermaine Matthews on the opposite side is really fucking good as well. I think that he was a top corner, probably deserved more playing time at times last year. I think Denzel Burke was good, but I don't know. I think that there's some other guys in that room that are also very good, also have a ton of talent. And I think that you're also looking at like Devin Sanchez as a guy that is really highly touted that could step in and do some things as well. Lorenzo Styles is also obviously back, kind of playing that nickel role, playing inside corner. I'm really excited. I'm excited about him as well. I think just having him return, you have a guy who's played. This is probably like year 2 for him, but he did play a couple years ago as well. So, I mean, he's got experience and whatnot, but I'm calling the entire unit as a whole between those four an upgrade.
Yeah, I mean, I think bringing back Igbinosun is kind of the thing that kind of moves that for me because I think it kind of has the blend of bringing back that leadership guy, but I think when you're looking across the depth, I think that's another thing. Like you're mentioning guys like Sanchez, like I think Scott's another guy that could potentially get some time as well. Like I think I think as you look across down like through the entire cornerback group, there's a lot of dudes in there that I think can make an impact pretty quickly. So I think as a unit, it's an upgrade. Like there's just a lot of guys in there that I like. And I think when, you have that, especially at a position like corner where you need a lot of dudes that I think that gives it the edge.
Yep. Safety. Got one of the best players in college football back. Caleb Downs. They're moving him into the nickel role, basically to kind of just put him wherever they want on the field, let him kind of roam. And probably Jalen McLean will be the other safety playing alongside him. I think the biggest thing for this room is going to be if they can get that other safety, they can trust him to the point where they can kind of just let Caleb just roam and do his thing. I think this is definitely going to be an upgrade. I mean, you got the top 2, top 3 best player in college football coming back. I don't know how you can call his unit a downgrade when there's only 2 of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think just bringing back Caleb Downs in itself is an upgrade. Another year with a dude like that. I don't know how you could call it a downgrade. I mean, I know obviously new guy playing strong, but I mean, it's Caleb Downs. It's kind of similar to the Jeremiah thing where it's like when you're bringing this dude back, I can't really, I can't really say with honesty that this team that I'm worried about the safety group at all when Caleb Downs is there. So, I mean, I think it's a clear upgrade just from bringing it back a guy like that.
Lastly, the linebackers. You're going to have Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese shouldering the load there. I think you'll probably see a little bit of Riley Pettyjohn as well. He's a highly touted 5-star from the state of Texas. Can't remember if he's a freshman this year or if he was a freshman last year. He may be a true freshman. I think he might be a true freshman now. I'm sure there's probably another guy that I'm missing in that mix that will also step in and play that role. But I'm honestly going to call this an upgrade. I think Sonny Styles in year 2 is going to get more experience at the position. I think last year was, people forget, first time ever playing linebacker, and he played it pretty damn well. But to flip like that from a position, it's going to take a while to get it accumulated, take a while to get adjusted. But, I mean, you can see the talent that he is. He's fucking long. He's fucking strong. He can run. And, boy, did he fuck some people up last year. So, I think just in terms of just, like, reading the defense, like, just naturally playing the position, I think you're going to see a lot better version of Sonny Styles this year. And Arvell Reese, I think he is a future first-rounder. I think that dude is an absolute fucking freak. He was consistently one of the highest PFF graded players on the entire roster for Ohio State last year. And I know, take PFF grades with a grain of salt. I know people have their opinions on them. I don't think it's the end all be all, but what I kind of like about him is it's like a grading scale to kind of it's like war in a way for me from baseball, where it just kind of shows like overall like how the player played and how they compare to like the rest of their team or the other opposition and things like that. So he has put on a fuck ton of muscle over the course of last year. I know just different things that you listen to, different coaches that you talk about him. He's one of, I think, the smarter players on the team. Just really good at reading things from the linebacker side of things. I think he identified things very quickly, processes things very quickly, and giving him the full reins to go out and really do it, along with adding kind of that weight that he's added on, that muscle that he's added on, I think he's going to be really fucking good this year. And I'll say it, I think Arvell Reese is going to be a first-rounder by the time he leaves Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, I love that take. I mean, this was probably the second, like I was saying, tight end was the most obvious upgrade. To me, this is probably the second most. I mean, it's honestly similar logic with the Caleb Downs, Jeremiah Smith thing, but I feel like for Sonny Styles, it's like you said, it was his first year playing linebacker ever. So with that, reads, just natural feel for playing linebacker. Like, I think all that's going to grow. And then you're bringing back Arvell Reese too, who, like you said, had a great year last year. So you're bringing back two dudes who were good last year. I only imagine they're going to continually get better. So clear upgrade in my mind.
So on a final note, we have, I think, every position has an upgrade other than the only downgrades that we had were quarterback, running back, and then defensive line. And I think that we both noted there's a good chance that I think D-line and quarterback especially could end up being an upgrade. I think that no matter how good James Peoples and C.J. Donaldson play, I think that'll always end up being a downgrade just because the two guys that were there following, not saying that those teams suck by any means, but I just think it's really hard to replace the production. So I think that I know, like, you always hear people talk about, well, they had 14 guys to go to the draft. They lost Jim Knowles. They lost Chip Kelly. They're replacing two coordinators. It's like, yeah, but let's kind of, like, peel this back a little bit. They replaced Jim Knowles with a guy who's won a couple Super Bowls. They replaced Chip Kelly with a guy who's been in the system, been at Ohio State for 7-8 years already. He's coached under Ryan Day. He knows exactly everything Ryan Day wants. It's time for him to step up. And then when you go in the player side of things, like, yes, they had 14 guys drafted. They had some others go to the draft that ultimately aren't returning at all either. But when you go through and just compare the talent, I think some of the new guys or younger guys that are coming up, like, we just haven't seen some of them yet because a lot of those guys that left, they'd been here for a while. And those guys had a lot of frustrations during their time at Ohio State. A lot of it Michigan-driven, obviously. I think if they win a couple games against Michigan, they probably don't get some of the shit that they received up until the one they won the national championship. But I think from a talent side of things, I don't think they're losing much talent. I think the talent's there. I think the biggest thing they're losing is experience. And, hey, they're getting that experience right away, right off week one, taking on Texas. So you're going to have some of these young guys that are going to be – they'll have no choice but to grow up fast. So I don't think talent's going to be an issue. I think it's going to come down to leadership and then getting these guys experience and getting them comfortable playing their roles.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're biased, but I'm telling everybody who listens, I feel like we're going back to back. But I mean, and I think it's for a lot of reasons we said, like for how much we lost. When you're looking at this roster, it feels like there's still a lot of talent there, which
there's a lot of reload.
That much talent normally. Yeah, it's reload, baby.
Yes, sir. So before we go on to the last topic, I do want to do another ad read for our sponsor, Draft Top. This episode is brought to you by Draft Top, the ultimate tool for beer lovers. If you're tired of drinking out of cans and want to actually taste your drink the way it is meant to be enjoyed, Draft Top is your answer. It's a bar tool that removes the top of your can, turning it into a smooth, open cup. That means better aroma, better flavor, and no more drinking through that tiny opening. Perfect for tailgates, watch parties, or just cracking open a cold one while you watch the Reds make a playoff push. And tonight, they're making you happy, so you can have a happy beer. Go to drafttop.com and use promo code DIVIDED. You get 10% off at checkout. Give them a look. So the last couple topics here, we just have the Browns and Bengals. I don't think we're going to spend a whole lot of time on these two. I think there's probably a little bit less to talk about than obviously the Reds, who have the season going on right now. Ohio State's got a lot that they got to kind of figure out and kind of replace. So starting off with the Browns, I think the elephant in the room right now is the quarterback battle that they have going on. Sounds like they got 5, now 6 quarterbacks that are going to kind of make up that room between Joe Flacco, Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, Kenny Pickett. Deshaun Watson at some point will come back, and then it sounds like they did sign Tyler Huntley, right?
Yep.
So, obviously they also lost Martin Emerson. What did he do? Was that an Achilles?
Yep, tore his Achilles.
Another fucking Achilles injury. What is going on? But, yeah, obviously Martin Emerson is out for the year. I really love their draft pick. I know that we've talked about this a lot. I think the Browns killed the draft. I think that they brought in a lot of young talent. They brought in, like, Mason Graham wasn't a sexy pick, but he is like a 8-year All-Pro. Like, I literally think the guy is that good. I saw him do nothing but wreck Ohio State at Michigan. not only Ohio State, but basically any team that they ever played. The dude is strong as fuck, can control the offensive line. Not the offensive line, can control the line of scrimmage. I think that was an absolute home run pick, and I think if you look in 5 years, that's one of those, like, let's redraft the 2025 draft. I think it's like Mason Graham definitely should have probably went like top 2 or 3. Other than that, I mean, I don't know what comments that you have about the Browns, Norm, but one question I did have for you that I think is kind of an interesting question. What would you say? Like, obviously, I don't think that Browns fans are like anticipating like a playoff run or anything like that. I think primarily just given the situation at quarterback and kind of some holes that they have on the offensive side of things. How would you measure success for the 2025 Cleveland Browns? Does success look like to you like, hey, let's go be competitive. Let's go see if we can come out, win 7, 8, 9 games, see fuck around, maybe be surprising. You got Joe Flacco there, kind of created some magic 2 years ago. Let's fucking try to go out, be competitive. We have a really good defense, one of the best defenses in football still, by the way. We still have one of the best players in all of football in Myles Garrett. So let's fuck it. Let's go out, try to be competitive, see if we can get 8, 9, potentially 10 wins, surprise some people, and fuck around, see if we can get in the playoffs. Or is it more so, no, I think that I'm tired of doing this whole quarterback carousel thing. Like, we fucked up the Deshaun thing. Like, I'm fine having a few win season so we can go out and get a guy like an Arch Manning or any of the others, because this is going to be an absolutely loaded quarterback draft class that's coming up next year. So are you looking at success in terms of being competitive, or no, let's just get some of these younger guys some experience this year, get them a year in the NFL, and then let's go get a high draft pick, take our quarterback, maybe get a playmaker or two in the draft, and then let's go for it next year? Where do you kind of fall as a Browns fan?
Honestly, I think that answer will be, my answer will be more defined probably week 4, because I think, like you said, we have one of the best defenses in football. So I think regardless of how the team is, I think I'm anticipating and expecting that. And if we're bad and the defense is bad, I'm not exactly excited about, I mean, obviously we're drafting quarterback high, whatever, but I'm not as excited as if, we're losing games 14-10 and, the defense is holding their own. But I think it really comes down to probably Flacco. I would say he's the most likely starter. Pickett obviously had a shot. I think by the end of this, Flacco is going to take it over. And I think it'll be like if there's any Flacco magic in there, I'm down for it. Because I think because the defense is so good, the offense doesn't have to do a lot. So I think it's one of those things that it's like if the offense can do enough where we're sneaking wins, I mean, I'm obviously good after that. I would consider successful. I think that's interesting for the Browns this year. I know their win total is like 4.5 or something. So I would say they win like if they're hovering around 500, I think that's successful, playoffs or not. Because of that defense, I think if that's still staying strong, I'm a big Kevin Stefanski guy. Basically, keeping his ass off the hot seat is something I'd like to see as well. So that's part of the reason why I wouldn't want the wheels to completely fall off again. I know how the people up in Cleveland are, but I would say, but I would couple that with the fact of I would love to see a lot of these young guys get thrown into the fire. Maybe not necessarily the quarterbacks, but obviously that's going to be happening at the running back position. That's going to be happening with Mason Graham on the D line. It's going to be happening with Schlesinger at linebacker. So there's going to be a lot of young guys. So it's going to be their development plus the continued defense success. And I think that in itself probably gets us to 6-ish wins. I mean, it's the NFL. As much as the Browns don't look to be as good as many other teams, that defense is elite. And as we talked about, elite, anything elite gives you a shot. And obviously with the Judkins thing looming, he's probably going to get suspended probably 6 games, I would guess. It'll be interesting to see how they navigate that at the beginning, but I'm a big fan of Sampson, SEC Offensive Player of the Year, and I think a great value of where they got him at. So I think they added more talent than I think even people assume. Because I mean, when I'm looking at every guy they drafted, I think there's potential impact, and I think the two guys that potentially are the quarterbacks. I think everybody else has a pretty good chance to see the field and see it quick. Like a guy like Harold Fannin from BG, one of the most electric small school players, not named Ashton Genty last year. He'll be interesting to see in a Kevin Stefanski offense that is good at play action and having the tight ends getting involved and whatnot, and having two tight ends involved. So it doesn't mean that's at the against like an Njoku or anything. So I think it's really interesting with the young guys they're bringing in, the defense they have. And the thing is I think the trade from 2 to 4 gave him so much flexibility while still adding an elite player in Mason Graham. You go into next year with 2 firsts, you can kind of do with that what you will. If there's a quarterback you like, you can make that swing, whether you won 7 games or you won 10 games or you won 2 games. So I think I like where they're at. I think it's a weird thing to say with the Browns with how last year went, but the closer we're getting off the Deshaun Watson deal, the better I'm feeling.
Yeah, for sure. I was going to say exactly what you said at the beginning. I think you said, ask me after week 4. I haven't looked at the Browns schedule at all. And today when I was kind of thinking about like how I knew that was a question I wanted to ask you, like what do you determine success for the 2025 Cleveland Browns? I think the one thing that I was like, I think it's one of those things that you like ask me after week 6. Are they 3-3? Then fuck yeah, like let's get the fucking 9 wins. Let's try to get over 500. Let's go try to be competitive. If you're 1-5, 2-4, then it's like yeah, like there's no point in getting to 6, 7 wins. You're just gonna kill your draft stock at this point. You need a high end quarterback. The only way you're probably gonna get a high end quarterback is if you draft really high. So at that point, like let's just win a few games, get some of our young guys acclimated to NFL football. Obviously, you noted Harold Fannin, you noted Mason Graham, Dylan Sampson. I mean, the Browns absolutely killed the draft. Other than probably drafting 2 quarterbacks was a little bit questionable. But, I mean, every other pick that they had, I thought they had as good a draft as anybody. But, yeah, I think it's one of those things, like, let's just see how it kind of all plays out. Obviously, you're shaping up for the Browns and Bengals matchup there week 1. I'm excited for it. I think the Bengals obviously match up a lot better with the Browns today than what they did back during, like, the Baker Mayfield era. I've felt a lot better about playing the Browns ever since Baker has not been in town. I don't think it's because of Baker. I just think there was more of like a physical identity that the Bengals couldn't always match up to back then. I think that physical identity has kind of fallen off a little bit, at least on the offensive side. Obviously, defensive side is still as good as it's ever been. But the most frustrating part for me, at least always watching the Bengals and Browns play, was just like they're going to hand the ball off 30 fucking times and there's nothing you can do about it. Like we just weren't physical enough up front to sit there and take 30 blows from Nick Chubb. But obviously you don't have that offensive line anymore. You don't have that running back anymore. So a little bit of more of a identity shift from the Browns. So I feel a little bit better about that game, and I think the Bengals will get it done this time. I think they'll get it done this time around on week 1 than what they did 2 years ago. Anything else on the Browns side of things, Norm?
No, that's all I had.
So we'll quickly shift to the Bengals to round out everything. Obviously, the Bengals, they've been in the news a lot lately, whether it's Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Shamar Stewart, Trey Hendrickson, Noah Fant. They've had a lot going on. Obviously, they got the Jamar deal done. They got the T deal done. They got the Shamar deal done. And another note is, I just want to say, I am always the first one to call out the Bengals front office and how fucking incompetent they are. But the whole Shamar thing had nothing to do with the front office and everything to do with that agent is an absolute literal fucking moron. He actually came on, I think it was Drew Garrison and Bengalarian, their podcast the other day. They asked this guy like 2 or 3 times to come on their show, and he basically ghosted them like the first 2 times, and then finally the third time he got up, and like I've watched bits and pieces of it, but there are like literal national media NFL people that watch that, and they're like, this guy is an absolute fucking idiot. Like, he's just stupid. The clause and whatnot that was in Shamar Stewart's contract is the exact same clause that's in every other single rookie's contract of any other team in the NFL. I think the biggest thing that he was fighting against is that the Bengals haven't done it much lately with their rookies, and they just implemented it with Shamar, which if it's kind of one of those things that's pretty consistent across the board, just like shut the fuck up and just fucking do it. I mean, he lost the battle, obviously. Like, that clause that he was bitching about and hanging up on, it's still in there in the contract. I think in return he got a little bit more guaranteed money on the back end. But, I mean, from the Bengals' perspective, it's just like we're fine giving you the guaranteed money, but, like, we want this clause in here where if you're a fuck-up, if you do something stupid, like, we don't owe you that guaranteed money. So I think that agent is also going through disputes right now. James Cook is holding out, and he's his agent too. And from what I've read from that side of things, it sounds like that is an absolute shit show as well. And then Zay Flowers had this guy as an agent as well and literally just fired him like a month ago because he's literally just a fucking idiot. Like I said, I watched a video of him. I completely am like going to back up the Bengals front office here, which I typically never do. I'm usually the first one to call them out and how stupid they are and how awful they are. But that was 100% like the whole Shamar thing was that agent is dumb as fuck. Aside from that, obviously Trey Hendrickson still don't have a deal done yet. I'm not worried about anything. I think that it'll get done. He'll be ready. He'll be suited up for week 1. He'll be out there playing. The one thing I did want to say is if you were going to go into camp or get close to not having Shamar or Trey ready to go for week 1, I feel a lot better in trusting Trey Hendrickson to be in shape and ready to go week 1 than I do Shamar Stewart. And Shamar, like, since he started practicing, you have only seen and heard, like, really, really, really good things about him. Like, he is phenomenal attitude. Like, you hear him talk to the media and whatnot. Like, he is a very, very, very well-spoken, like, young man. Like, he's very good with the microphone. He sounds very professional, speaks very clearly to reporters. And kind of what they've mentioned is he's been practicing like really, really, really fucking well. And I think Al Golden, like the biggest thing that he's like talked about with him is I think that we can put him on the edge. I think we can shift him inside. I think we can stand him up. He's like, I think that's the biggest part that I really like about Shamar is he's an athletic freak. He's a guy that you can put in a lot of different areas, and due to his athleticism, he's gonna have the ability to make some things happen and really produce in whatever role that they throw him in. I also think if you especially have Trey Hendrickson out there, having Shamar Stewart just an absolute freak rushing off the edge, I think that is only going to help him because Trey's going to call for double teams, which means Shamar's going to be singled up on an offensive tackle more times than not. And I think that's only good for Shamar's development. I think that's only good for Shamar's production. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think by week 10, Shamar Stewart will have more sacks in the NFL than he did his entire college career.
Ooh, I like that.
I think he will. I've seen clips of him. He's explosive as fuck off the edge. I don't know how he had his little sacks that he did at Texas A&M. I know different things that I read was that they had a lot of like a Jim Knowles type of style defense where before like that first Oregon game at Ohio State, you didn't really see the defensive ends getting too active in the backfield. It was more so like, hey, apply pressure, but make sure like it's more so like keep contained and keeping the guy in the pocket so he's not able to scramble around. So I saw that was a lot of like Texas A&M's defensive philosophy, but I mean, still like to be that big and all the intangibles that he had, you would definitely hope there would be a lot more production there than what there was. But no, I think that having Trey opposite side of him, I mean, fuck, he's only got to get to 4 sacks. I think by week after the conclusion of Week 10, I think he will have at least 4 sacks.
We will circle back to this when that time comes.
Hey, we're all about hot takes. And then the last couple things that I had, Noah Fant, I really like that signing. I think that really shores up their tight end room now. Obviously, you have Mike Gesicki. He's a tight end, a little bit more of a slot receiver type. Drew Sample, who's more of like your blocking type tight end. And then Tanner Hudson, who I would say is a little bit more of a receiving tight end. But that tight end group has really been kind of the weak spot, I would say, over the past few years. I think adding Noah Fant adds a little bit more of a different dimension to the offense. He's a really good pass catcher. I think he lacks a little bit in the blocking game. But I look at it this way. I was looking at his stats last night. Out of his 7 seasons that he's played in the NFL, I don't think he's ever played less than 14 or 15 games in a season. So he's durable. And of that time, he's had about 400, 500 receiving yards each year. So he's consistently been right around that mark. And what I call it the Joe Burrow tight end school of rehab. Basically what the Bengals do is they just bring in these tight ends on the street. Joe will get you paid. You have a good year catching passes with Burrow. Joe will get you paid, and then you move on. CJ Uzomah. Have we heard that fucking name since he was on the Bengals? No. He had a really good year with Joe Burrow. Left for New York for more money. Haven't heard about him since. Hayden Hurst. Have we heard his fucking name since he went to Carolina? No. Had a really good year with Burrow. Came in, balled out, left for more money. Mike Gesicki. Came in, balled out, just signed an extension with the Bengals. So I think it's been proven there's a track record here that if you are a solid tight end, if you at least can catch passes, at least to some sort of ability, like Burrow's going to find a way to get you a ball. I think a best friend in a Bengals offense is a really good tight end. I think that they've always had like a little bit above average tight end during Burrow's time there. I think it'd be really fucking scary to see what would happen if you ever had a really good tight end. But obviously having Jamar and T, you can't have everything. But I'm excited for Noah Fant. I think he has the ability to kind of add a different dimension to the offense. And then the last core, the last position group I really wanted to hit on was the linebacker core. I really like Demetrius Knight that they drafted out of, I think he was from South Carolina. He'll probably be running alongside Logan Wilson. And then Barrett Carter, their 4th round pick that they got from Clemson. I don't know how that guy fell to the 4th round. Everything that I've watched on him, the dude flies around and fucking literally just like looking to kill guys. I'm excited about him. And then they brought in Oren Burke, linebacker from the Eagles, who had a really good run. Played some really good ball for the Eagles down the stretch there to their Super Bowl victory. So I think whenever you take out Jermaine Pratt, who was a little bit of a locker room cancer, replace them with Demetrius Knight, who's known as a leader, a really smart guy that can kind of get guys in the right spots. Barrett Carter, fly around a lot. I think Zach Taylor has mentioned him many times since the start of training camp of how impressed the coaching staff has been by him. And then Oren Burke, I think that was a solid signing. I think if you can get the Trey Hendrickson deal done, I think the Bengals defense is significantly improved than what it was last year. I think that the D tackle spot is going to be improved. They brought in TJ Slayton from the Green Bay Packers. I think he's more of like a run stopper type that they're going to have there. I also think BJ Hill is a good player to have in that spot. And then, what's his name? The D tackle that played alongside Mason Graham at Michigan for the national championship run. I don't know why I'm blanking right now. But he is also back. He had a solid rookie year, but I think that they're really looking at him to make a step at D tackle. And then, obviously, the other DN spots. You have Shamar, you have Joseph Asai, you have Miles Murphy, who was a first-round pick. Hopefully he can put some things together. And then on the back end for the DBs, I think last year they were just really fucking hurt. They had a lot of like undrafted guys that they were playing back there at certain times of the year. CTB fell off a lot last year. Hopefully he can get things back into how he was earlier in his career when he was a really, really, really good corner. DJ Turner last year was playing some really fucking good ball. Ended up hurting his knee partway through the year. Dax Hill, another guy who started to play some corner last year, who was showing some flashes, got hurt as well. I think having Jordan Battle taking Von Bell's spot, and then also like Shamar Stewart taking Sam Hubbard's spot. I think getting some of those younger guys in there is going to fill up a couple of those spots as well. I do think that the defensive coordinator that they fired, I can't fucking remember people's names right now. What was the defensive coordinator's name that they just fired?
Lou
Anarumo. That's what it was. Yeah. So Lou Anarumo, I think like he brought back Von Bell last year. He had Sam Hubbard in there. I think that those were the guys that got him to the Super Bowl. Those were the guys that got him to back-to-back AFC championships. So I think he trusted them a lot more than what he did like a Joseph Asai, than he did Miles Murphy, than he did Jordan Battle, like high draft picks that are younger guys. I think he trusted them more. But like those guys were just like well past their prime. So I think the defense is not going to be like a top 10 unit by any means. But instead of being like bottom 5, I think you could find them right in that like 16 to 18 window, which with the offensive firepower that the Bengals have, having Burrow, Jamar, T, it's our first offseason where all three are practicing. So you expect the offense to finally hit the ground running for once. I think that a 16th to 18th ranked defense, I think that it will at least get you to about 11 wins is kind of what I'm projecting from them this year. So I'm excited. I think there's a lot to be excited about. Just got one more looming thing out there, the Trey Hendrickson deal. Get that done. Get the offense firing on all cylinders and just give me an average defense, and I think the Bengals will find themselves right back in the playoffs.
Yeah, I was going to say I think my projection for them this year would probably be in that 10-11 win range, fighting for the division, probable wild card. They really haven't lost anything of note to me. Like I feel like you kept the guys you needed to keep, and you only added more young guys to the crew on defense, and then just kind of banking on some of those young guys that you're just talking about to kind of step up into the more prominent roles, which you'd anticipate based on draft capital. So yeah, I do think the Bengals are probably going to be back in the playoffs this year, probably taking that Steelers spot, and fighting with the Ravens for the division.
Yeah, I think it's a Ravens division to lose again. I think they're obviously going to be really fucking good with everything they have over there, but the defense was like historically bad last year, and the offense was historically good. But whenever you're having to score like 35 points a game, like that's fucking damn near impossible. And they had I think 9 wins last year. I think they were 9-8 is what they finished. Like they had, of their 8 losses, like 5 of them were absolute heartbreakers. Like definitely should have won or definitely should have gone the other way. Like I'm thinking of like Patriots game, Chiefs game, both Ravens games, Chargers game. Like there's a 5 I just rattled off right off the top of my head where it's like they legitimately should have won every single one of those games and didn't. So I don't know. I'm excited. I am back on like let's get in the fucking playoffs. Let's see what we can do. I trust Burrow right up there with the next guy. I'll take him against anybody in the fucking league. The dude only plays better whenever the lights get brighter. Obviously, every other team in the NFL outside of maybe 1 or 2 would rather have Joe Burrow, and I feel extremely blessed to be able to root on him, Jamar, T, Jeremiah Smith, Ellie De La Cruz. Like, I have a really fucking good life right now.
Yeah, as you should. I'll take my Myles Garrett and I'll hold him tight.
Yeah, we have some absolute freaks that we root for on our favorite teams, and it's pretty awesome. Crazy part is Jeremiah might be the best out of all of them.
Yep.
All right.
And it's August. It's nearing.
Yes, sir. All right. we got anything else? Anything else that you wanted to hit on before we get out of here?
No, I think that's all I got.
Awesome. Well, I think this is a really good episode. We covered a lot in a not so much of a short period of time, but we covered a lot. If you guys could please like, subscribe, retweet, follow all of us on all of our social media platforms. You can find us on X, find Ohio Divided on TikTok, Instagram. Really just looking to grow, get as much content out there as what we possibly can. As always, we appreciate everybody tuning in. Going to continue to do this. Talked a little bit about the new show structure and things like that. So excited for kind of how things are going, and I'm really especially excited for football